Chapter 1166. There was a proud smile on the emperor's face. He couldn't help but laugh when he saw the scene of him unifying the continent. Your Majesty. Noble concubine Lu raised her wine cup and walked to the front of the emperor. Congratulations, Your Majesty, on your first victory. Before long, the Peerless Empire and the Flowing Moon Empire will become Your Majesty's territory. If the other empires do not obey Your Majesty can send people to destroy them. Haha. The emperor laughed wildly again. His laughter was extremely arrogant. This continent will become my territory. Boom! Just as the emperor was in high spirits, a loud noise came from outside the banquet hall, instantly attracting everyone's attention. The emperor frowned and slowly got up. Who is so bold to dare to make trouble in my Tianhui Empire? As soon as he finished speaking, a voice came from outside the door. It was filled with murderous intent. People of the Tianhui Empire, come out and face your death. The emperor's face was very ugly. He did not expect that at this time, there would be people who were not afraid of death. Let's go, I want to see who is coming to make trouble. He flicked his sleeves and quickly walked out of the hall. The sky was dusky and there was a young girl standing in the void. The girl's white robes were particularly eye-catching in the dusky sky and could be seen at a glance. When the emperor saw the girl who appeared in the sky above the palace, his face sank. He shouted coldly, Yun Luofeng, you actually took the initiative to come here. The people of the Tianhui Empire killed Jian Qingguen. This time I am avenging him. Yun Luofeng gently raised his chin and said condescendingly, Haha, then I want to see if you have the strength to do so. Come, catch this woman. A touch of ruthlessness flashed in the emperor's eyes as he said with a sinister smile. In an instant, a group of soldiers walked over from nearby. In the silent night, only the sound of their footsteps could be heard. The group of people surrounded Yun Luofeng like the god of death. Their aura was cold and their faces were cold. They were like a group of emotionless machines that only knew how to kill. Yun Luofeng stood in the middle of the encirclement. His expression did not change as he stared at the group of people coldly. Kill! Following the command of the leader, all the soldiers moved and quickly rushed towards Yun Luofeng. A eunuch brought over a seat for the emperor. He flicked his sleeves and sat down. He sneered and said, Yun Luofeng, in this life, the biggest mistake you made was to walk right into a trap. Yun Luofeng did not speak. When the group of soldiers arrived in front of her body suddenly burst into flames. At the same time, her evil and cold voice gradually rang out, spreading throughout the entire palace. Fire, Milk Tea, Mouse Queen, Meng Meng. All of you charge. Kill them without mercy. In an instant, several figures appeared out of thin air beside Yun Luofeng. The few figures quickly charged towards the group of soldiers. Fire opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of flames. The temperature of the flames was incomparably hot, and went straight into his soul. The originally expressionless soldiers were howling in pain as they were burned by the flames, and a burnt smell spread throughout the passageway. Milk Tea and the others did not have the strength of fire. Just as he bit off the soldier's arm had already grown out. No matter how ferocious its bite was, the soldier's flesh would grow back as if it was regenerating. Chapter 1167. So Milk Tea was furious. She and Meng Meng looked at each other and rushed to one of the soldiers at the same time. She opened her mouth and bit the soldier's arm. As the three of them bit, the soldier's flesh quickly disappeared. In the end, not even a hair was left. Can't you regenerate? I'll make sure you don't even have a piece of flesh left. Let's see how you can continue to grow. The other golden-seeking mice were also released. Although they were not as strong as Milk Tea and the other two, they were still not something the soldiers could resist. After a while, those soldiers who had a ferocious aura disappeared from the corridor of the imperial palace. The emperor's face suddenly sank. Yun Luofeng, it seems that I have really underestimated you. You dare to come to my Tianhui Empire, so you do have some strength. Unfortunately, with your strength, it is not enough to fight against the masters of my Tianhui Empire. Hua! As soon as the emperor's voice fell, countless figures appeared in the void in front of Yun Luofeng. These people were very strong. Some of them had even reached the intermediate level of Holy Spirit realm. Yun Luofeng's eyes were dignified. His evil eyes stared at the many old men standing in front of him, and the corners of his mouth slightly rose. 10 Holy Spirit Realm. 8 of them are low-level Holy Spirit Realm, and 2 are intermediate Holy Spirit Realm. This kind of force is indeed among the best in the continent. Of course, the strength of the Tianhui Empire was not only this. In addition to these Holy Spirit Realm, there were also 2 people who had reached the high-level Holy Spirit Realm. At this moment, these 2 high-level Holy Spirit Realm powerhouses had already led their troops to the Wushuang Empire and the Liyue Empire, so they were not in the Tianhui Empire. Let me think. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin and slightly narrowed his eyes. How many minutes will it take to defeat these people? The girl's arrogant voice made the emperor furious. Little girl, being too arrogant is not a good thing. This time I will teach you a lesson. As the emperor's voice fell, the elders had already begun to move, their figures flashed, and they attacked Yun Luofeng from all directions. Yun Luofeng stood among the crowd, his clothes fluttering in the wind. His expression did not change, and he calmly swept his gaze over the many Holy Spirit Realm powerhouses. Boom! In an instant her aura surged and burst out. Like a wave of light spreading from her body, the Holy Spirit Realm powerhouses were knocked back a few steps. In the meantime, countless vines abruptly burst out of the ground and attacked the Holy Spirit cultivators from several directions. Those people were caught off guard. Their bodies were entangled by the vines and firmly fixed in the void. Yun Luofeng raised his eyes slightly and gazed coldly at the emperor. In an icy voice he said, "What other power do you have? You can take it out." 10 Holy Spirit Masters. 2 of them were mid-level Holy Spirit experts. However, he was actually unable to dodge Yun Luofeng's attack? The emperor's face was pale with fright. He bit his lip and asked, "You've become a Holy Spirit?" Such a young Holy Spirit was a miracle on the continent. Therefore, the emperor could not believe what he was seeing. "Your Majesty." Imperial concubine Lu was so frightened that her entire body trembled. She leaned tightly against the emperor. Her vicious eyes were filled with panic. "When you sent people to attack the Yi family, did you think about the consequences?" Yun Luofeng slowly walked toward the emperor. His expression was cold, and his killing intent was thick. Chapter 1168. Yun Luofeng, do you really think that the Heavenly Hui Empire has its current strength without any trump cards? The emperor clenched his teeth and said, "Lord Shanyun, please help me kill this woman." In that instant, a figure shrouded in black mist appeared in front of Yun Luofeng. The old man's aura was cold, and he stared at the young girl in front of him. His dry and hoarse voice was like a claw constantly grinding against a wooden board, making people feel very uncomfortable. "Little girl, I advise you to leave. Don't meddle in other people's business. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being impolite. I came here to kill the dog emperor of the Heavenly Hui Empire. No one is qualified to stop me." Yun Luofeng's evil eyes glanced at the old man in front of him and said coldly, "I don't care about the hatred between you and him, but I won't allow you to ruin my plan. If you don't want to leave, then I can only kill you." Boom! A strong killing intent surged out from the old man's body. This powerful aura was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Yun Luofeng's expression changed slightly. She looked at the old man with a dignified expression. This old man was very strong, but she had promised the empress that she would bring her enemy back for her to deal with. "If the dog emperor of the Heavenly Hui Empire doesn't die, I won't leave." Yun Luofeng faced the pressure and stepped forward. Her eyebrows were filled with arrogance and domineeringness. "Humph!" The old man snorted, and a gloomy and powerful aura spread out once again. After Yun Luofeng received this aura, her body trembled slightly. She still withstood the pressure, and the corners of her mouth curled up in a mocking smile. The old man was a little surprised. How could a mere Holy Spirit be able to withstand my oppression? This woman was not simple. She could not be allowed to live. "Little girl, you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. In that case, this old man will send you to hell." The old man's figure flashed and suddenly appeared in front of Yun Luofeng. He raised his palm and fiercely slapped Yun Luofeng's head. "Stop!" Fire roared in anger and quickly pounced towards the old man. Her blood-red eyes were filled with anger, and the flames on her body burned uncontrollably. However, fire was, after all, a distance away from Yun Luofeng. When the old man's hand slapped down, she was already too late to reach his side. You're such an old man, yet you're bullying a little girl. Aren't you embarrassed? Suddenly, a mocking voice rang out from the void. The old man was taken aback. Because of this, a figure in flaxen robes appeared in front of Yun Luofeng, raising his hand to block the old man's attack. Bang! The two palms collided and both of them took a few steps back. The old man narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at the man who had appeared out of thin air. Qin Yuan glanced at the old man in disdain. He turned to face Yun Luofeng and chuckled. Mistress, master asked me to come back to see you, so I have come back. Qin Yuan. Yun Luofeng was stunned as he looked at Qin Yuan, who was standing in front of him. If you're here, then where's Yun Shao? Qin Yuan scratched the back of his head. Master still has some matters to attend to, so he couldn't come to see mistress. That's why he sent me here. I didn't expect to see mistress in danger. Mistress, take a few steps back. Let this subordinate deal with this person. The old man's expression changed from astonishment to shock. This man's strength was not lower than his own. Chapter 1169. What was this woman's identity? You are. The old man seemed to have sensed something. His eyes suddenly widened, revealing a trace of fear. That's right. He had seen this man before. Wasn't he the bodyguard who followed the god of death? Since he called Yun Luofeng mistress, did that mean that Yun Luofeng was related to the god of death? Congratulations, you guessed correctly. My master is mistress man, yet you want to harm mistress. If my master finds out about this, TSK, even the power behind you won't be able to protect you. Qin Yuan chuckled. However, I am willing to give you a chance. If you harm yourself, you can die without any pain. On the other hand, you know my master's methods very well. The old man's body trembled slightly. He couldn't help but feel terrified when he thought of the god of death's terrifying methods. Why was his luck so bad? A random person he had met was the god of death's woman? My lord. The emperor sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly said, Don't forget, don't you want the jade seals of the three great empires? As long as you kill Yun Luofeng, I will obtain the jade seals for you. The old man didn't speak. After a long while, he picked up a sword from the ground and gently closed his eyes. The moment the sword slashed across his neck, blood spurted out and dyed his clothes red. His body slowly fell down, and with a thud he fell into the pool of blood. At least he wouldn't be tortured if he harmed himself. If he really fell into the hands of the god of death, perhaps even death would be an extravagant hope for him. The emperor's face was ashen and despair welled up in his heart. His body went limp and he sat paralyzed on the ground. Mistress. Qin Yuan looked at Yun Luofeng and said, This time my master sent me back. Besides ordering me to protect you, he also asked me to bring you an item. What item? Yun Luofeng raised his brows and asked. Qin Yuan took out a bronze mirror from his clothes and handed it to Yun Luofeng. This is the celestial spirit mirror. My master asked me to give it to you. As for its use, I still don't know. Yun Luofeng put the celestial spirit mirror away. Since this was something that Yun Shao had given her, it would definitely have an extraordinary use. Qin Yuan, go to the Wushuang Empire and the Luiyue Empire and kill all the people from the Tianhui Empire. Leave no one alive. Yun Luofeng's eyes flickered with killing intent as he coldly instructed. Yes. Qin Yuan cupped his fists. By the way, Qin Yuan, do you know why this old man wants the jade seals of the three great nations? Yun Luofeng asked, stroking his chin as if he had thought of something. Qin Yuan was silent for a while. Then he shook his head and said, I'm not sure either. I think the jade seals of these three nations are of no use to him. Yun Luofeng nodded and said, When you go to those two countries, bring the jade seals to me. I always feel that the jade seals of the three great empires are different. Yes. Qin Yuan replied respectfully. After giving his orders, Yun Luofeng turned his gaze towards the emperor and consort Lu. He narrowed his eyes and smiled dangerously. I've said it before, I've come here to take your lives. She paused and continued. Of course, compared to me, the Empress of Tianyun Kingdom is more qualified to punish you. Fire, take them away. Chapter 1170. All right. Fire blinked his eyes and walked towards the emperor and imperial concubine Lu with a smile. There was a sinister smile on her young and tender face. You'd better not resist. Otherwise, my flames will not listen to my orders. She opened her small hand and a raging flame burned. After seeing the raging flame, the emperor and imperial concubine Lu trembled, not daring to move an inch. That's more obedient. Fire withdrew his flames in satisfaction and laughed sinisterly. Are you coming with me? Or should I take you with me? No matter how unwilling they were in their hearts, the emperor and imperial concubine Lu still stood up and followed behind Fire. Milk tea, you guys come back. Yun Luofeng raised her hand and all the gold-seeking mice disappeared into thin air. Her gaze then turned to Fire. Let's go back. At this time, the emperor and imperial concubine Lu's eyes were filled with despair, as if they already knew what was waiting for them next. When Yun Luofeng escorted the two of them back to their country, the furious empress ignored the obstruction of others. She picked up a dagger and rushed over to stab the emperor's body. Her eyes were filled with hatred, wishing that she could cut the person in front of her into 1,000 pieces. If the man beside her had not stopped the empress in time, perhaps the empress would have completely lost her mind and moved the fetus again. After Yun Luofeng completed his promise to the empress, he locked himself in the Yi family to study the celestial spirit mirror. However, even Xiao Mo did not know how to use the celestial spirit mirror. A few days later, Qin Yuan, who she had sent to the two empires, returned. When he returned, the first thing Yun Luofeng asked was, "How did you come back to the Wuhui continent?" Qin Yuan rubbed the back of his head. "The place where Master and I are now is called the Seven Continents continent. This continent is different from the Wuhui continent. In that continent there are people guarding the wormhole. Every 2 years those people will open the wormhole, allowing people from the two worlds to come and go. As far as I know, it hasn't been 2 years yet." Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows. "Then how did you come back?" Qin Yuan coughed awkwardly. "Well, I knocked out the person guarding the wormhole, so I walked out." Yun Luofeng slowly stood up. "Qin Yuan, tell me where the wormhole is. In a few days I will go to the 7 continents. Also, I hope that you can stay here. With your strength you can ensure their safety." "Mistress," Qin Yuan was a little anxious. "Master sent me here to protect you. If I stay, who will protect you?" "I'll be fine." Yun Luofeng slowly turned around and looked at the azure sky outside the door. He said indifferently, "Also, I don't want a tragedy to happen again." Her hands clenched into fists. Now, whenever she thought of Jian Qingwen's death, her heart would fiercely tighten, and she would feel extremely uncomfortable. Tragedy had already happened once, so she did not want another tragedy to happen. She could only leave with peace of mind if Qin Yuan stayed. Qin Yuan sighed helplessly. "Mistress, since Master has sent me to you, I will naturally listen to your orders. Don't worry, I will protect your loved ones." "Thank you." Yun Luofeng thanked him, pushed the door open and walked out. In the hall, Yi Jingchen and his wife were playing with the two children. When they suddenly saw Yun Luofeng walking over, they hurriedly stood up and their eyes fell on the girl's beautiful face. Chapter 1171. Feng'er. Jun Fengling's gaze was fixed on the young girl the entire time, and there was a hint of worry in his heroic eyes. "I'm here to bid farewell to you. Next, I'm going to follow in Yun Zhao's footsteps." The young girl's expression was firm and unquestionable. "Go ahead," Jun Fengling said with a smile. "Brother Yi and I will be leaving soon. I hope that we can meet on another continent in the future." Yun Luofeng nodded. "I still have to find the old man and second uncle to say goodbye. Father, mother, if fate wills it, we will definitely meet again in the future." This time she would be gone for a year and a half. Perhaps it would be a few years. Or perhaps it would be more than 10 years. However, when the old man found out that Yun Luofeng had just returned and was about to leave again, he, who was over 50 years old, cried like a child and held on to Yun Luofeng's hand, unwilling to let go. "Darling granddaughter, although I've always been blackmailing you during this period of time, I really can't bear to part with you after you leave. Especially since the place you're going to this time is so far away. Grandpa doesn't even know if he'll be able to live until the day you return." Yun Luofeng held the old man's hand tightly. "I will find Yun Xiao as soon as possible and come back to see you. Moreover, you've already broken through to the heavenly spirit realm, so living for another 50 years won't be a problem." The old man immediately fell silent and glared at Yun Luofeng with resentment. I just wanted to say something emotional. Do you need to slap my face like this? Father. Yun Qingya patted the old man's shoulder comfortingly and looked at Yun Luofeng with smiling eyes. Fenger, remember, we will always wait here for you to return. Yun Luofeng nodded his head lightly and looked at his relatives with a reluctant gaze. Ning Xian didn't say anything. Her beautiful face had a smile on it, and she was dignified and elegant. Her clear eyes stared at Yun Luofeng without blinking. Oh right. Yun Qingya seemed to have thought of something and said, when we were facing the army of the Sky Hui Empire, a man saved us. That man said he was your old lover. What? Upon hearing this, the old man, who was originally sad because of the parting, immediately flew into a rage. You stinking girl, you even have an old lover. Do you dare to do anything that will let Yun Xiao down? The old man trembled with anger. In his heart, Yun Xiao had already become his grandson-in-law. How could he possibly allow Yun Luofeng to do anything that would betray Yun Xiao? Yun Luofeng's mouth twitched. Old lover? How could she not know that she had an old lover? Second uncle, did he say his name? No. Yun Qingya shook her head and said, he asked us to pass on a message to you. How have you been since we parted ways in Twilight City? Twilight City? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. Could it be Chan Yuqing? At this moment a handsome fairy-like face appeared in the young girl's mind. She stroked her chin gently with her finger. The more she thought about it, the more likely it seemed. If this person came from the Twilight City, then it could only be Chan Yuqing. Stupid girl. The old man angrily took off his shoes and threw them at Yun Luofeng. If not for Yun Luofeng's quick reflexes and hurriedly dodging, he would definitely have been hit by this slipper. Grandfather. Yun Luofeng's face darkened as he helplessly called out. Who's your grandfather? Who are you calling grandfather? The old man's face was flushed red. You really found a lover. Let me tell you, I'm only satisfied with Yun Xiao as my grandson-in-law. I won't recognize anyone else. Chapter 1172. The old man snorted, looking like he was dead set on something. Yun Luofeng's forehead twitched a few times. Second uncle must have misheard. He's definitely not talking about an old lover, but an old patient. Old patient? The old man's eyes were filled with suspicion. It was obvious that he did not believe Yun Luofeng's words. Yun Luofeng gave Yun Qingya a look. Yun Qingya understood and coughed dryly. Her eyes were filled with a smile. Yes, Fenger is right. I heard wrongly. That man said a patient, not a lover. Grandfather, I already said that second uncle heard wrongly. Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. Chan Yuqing is a patient I met in Twilight City. Because I cured his illness, he came to find me this time to repay me. It's getting late now, I have to leave. Scram. The old man glared at him. If you don't bring Yun Xiao back to get married, don't come back to see me. Yun Luofeng smiled. She took one last look at her blood-related relatives, turned around and walked out. Only when his figure disappeared did Yun Qingya retract her gaze. Her face was filled with helplessness. Father, no one is involved in the relationship between Fenger and Yun Xiao. Don't worry about them. The anger on the old man's face gradually disappeared. He sighed, I know. Fenger is my granddaughter. How could I not understand her as a grandfather? Even if the man who saved you is interested in Fenger, Fenger will not accept her. Then why did you just... I just don't want the parting to be too sad. The old man's face was a little tired. Fenger's path is very broad. She shouldn't be limited to such a small place. As her grandfather, how can I drag her down? Fenger has already been tired enough during this period of time. I don't want her to leave in peace. If the old man had shown reluctance, Yun Luofeng would not have been so at ease. It was precisely because of his final actions that she was able to leave in peace. Qingya, I'm tired. I'll go down and rest first. You and Xiner should also go back to your room and rest early. The old man's body staggered a little. The moment he turned around, he finally couldn't stop his tears from flowing down his face. At the city gate, it was overgrown with weeds and was extremely desolate. On this road, the blood had not been washed clean, and one could still see the fierce battle that day. Just as Yun Luofeng was about to continue forward, he saw a figure in front of him that looked like an immortal from a painting. There was a smile on Chen Yuqing's handsome face as she stared at Yun Luofeng with a gentle gaze. "I've been waiting for you here for a long time." Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows. "Why did you come to the Northern continent to find me? Do you want to go to the Seven Continents continent?" Chen Yuqing went straight to the point. "That's right, I really want to go to the Seven Continents. Because there was someone she wanted to see there. Among the forces of the Seven Continents, many forces have space wormholes. Those wormholes are the only way to travel from this world to another world." Chen Yuqing's gaze remained fixed on Yun Luofeng. "If you want to enter the Seven Continents, I have a way to help you." "What is it?" "My Chen family has a wormhole." Yun Luofeng was startled. Was this considered wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching only to find it by chance without even looking for it? She had set out this time to find a way to enter the wormhole. She never thought that the Chen family would have such a wormhole. Chapter 1173. Before you go to the Seven Continents, I will explain the situation of the Seven Continents to you. The Seven Continents, as the name suggests, are divided into 7 continents. The South Continent, the North Continent, the West Continent, the East Continent, the Central Continent, the Spirit Continent, and the Beast Continent. Each continent has its own continent master, and the 7 continent masters are existences that cannot be provoked. On the 7 continents, there is also a ranking list. There are 2 types of ranking list. One is the ranking list of the strong. Those who can enter the list are the most powerful people in the continent. The top 7 of the ranking list of the strong are the continent masters of the 7 continents. In addition to the ranking list of the strong, there is also the ranking list of the geniuses. Those who enter the list are the best among the geniuses. If you encounter these people on the ranking list, you need to avoid them. And then? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and continued to ask. "This is all I know. After entering the 7 continents, you can only rely on yourself. I can't help you much." Chen Yuqing stared at Yun Luofeng and said slowly, "However, if you need help, even if I can't, I will risk my life to help you." "I understand." Yun Luofeng raised his head and stared deeply at Chen Yuqing. "Take me to the wormhole now." "Okay, come with me." Chen Yuqing glanced at Yun Luofeng and turned to leave. It had been almost 2 years since he left Yellow Spring City. But Yellow Spring City had not changed at all. It was so familiar that Yun Luofeng sighed. "You don't plan to go back and see your subordinates?" Chen Yuqing pondered for a while and asked. "No need. I don't like the feeling of parting." Yun Luofeng shook his head. "Chen Yuqing, after I leave, tell them to go to the medical tower in the Wuhui continent. There, their strength will increase very quickly." "Okay, I will tell them." After saying this, Chen Yuqing stopped and looked at Yun Luofeng with a smile. "We're here. This is the wormhole where my Chen family is." There was a stone door erected on the mountain range in front of them. A powerful force was faintly emitting from the stone door. Chen Yuqing took out a key and inserted it into the keyhole of the stone door. He gathered the spiritual power in his palm on top of the key, and after a while, the stone door emitted a burst of white light. Then with a bang it instantly opened. "Go in. Good luck." Yun Luofeng walked into the wormhole without any hesitation. When she stepped into the wormhole, there was a loud bang, and the stone door closed again. She did not stop and continued to walk forward. The wormhole was completely dark. Occasionally there would be storms. Not only did Yun Luofeng have to adapt to the darkness, but he also had to be careful not to get hurt by the storms. After an unknown amount of time, a light appeared in front of her. She quickened her pace and headed towards the light. The moment she stepped out of the wormhole, the scorching sun in the sky shone down dazzlingly. The surrounding trees were lush and verdant, and spiritual energy lingered in the air, making one feel refreshed. 7 continents, I have finally arrived. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. Once she came to the 7 continents, she would be one step closer to Yun Shao. Suddenly a scream was heard, echoing throughout the entire forest. "Who are you? Why are you here? I know you must have been sent by those people to kill the young lady. Run, young lady." A delicate and handsome youth pointed a sword at Yun Luofeng. His hand trembled slightly, and he almost dropped the sword in his hand. Chapter 1174. Yun Luofeng's face darkened. She looked like a killer? Moreover, this young man was so cowardly. Could he protect the miss he spoke of? At this moment, a little Lolita instantly crawled out of the pool. This little Lolita quickly draped her clothes over her body. Her little face was pale and colorless, and there were faint tears in her eyes. You're a killer sent by that bad woman? I'll give you double the amount she gave you. Can you let me go? The little girl bit her lip and looked pitifully at Yun Luofeng. She was about 6 years old. She looked like she was carved out of jade. She was very cute. Her big bright eyes were like black agate, shining with a misty luster. I'm just passing by. Yun Luofeng's mouth twitched as she explained. Miss, don't believe him. That woman must have sent someone very cunning. Maybe she wants to confuse us first and then kill you. Hurry up and leave. I'll cover you. The young man waved the dagger in his hand and rushed towards Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng's face darkened. Her fingers gently clasped the young man's wrist. With a forceful flip, she threw him to the ground and stepped on his chest. Wah! The little girl was so scared that she started crying. She quickly rushed in front of the young man and hugged Yun Luofeng's leg tightly. She wanted to push her leg off the young man's body. Brother Zihao, let go of Brother Zihao. I'm begging you. As long as you let go of Brother Zihao, I'll let you do whatever you want to me. The little girl cried pitifully. Her stubborn eyes were filled with tears. She looked as if she had been wronged. Yun Luofeng raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? The little girl bit her lip. I heard that the person that bad woman sent to kill me is a super pervert. Not only does he like women, but he also likes virgin girls. As long as you let go of Brother Zihao, I'll go with you. You can do whatever you want to me. If Yun Luofeng continued like this, she might really become a bully. Especially since the little girl was crying so pitifully. Yun Luofeng couldn't help but put down her leg. You can go, she said coldly. I'm not here to kill you and I'm not a pervert. I'm not interested in virgin girls. You can go now. The young man was startled. He crawled up from the ground, held the little girl's hand, and carefully followed behind Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng stopped and frowned. He coldly looked at the two people behind him and said, Why are you following me? The youth's delicate cheeks were stained with a touch of red. We didn't follow you. We just happened to be going the same way as you. Since she wasn't sent by that woman, she definitely wouldn't hurt them. In addition, she was quite strong, so it would be safer to follow her. Yun Luofeng ignored the two of them and continued forward. However, the two people behind her were like her little tails, always following behind her. If she quickened her pace, the two of them would quickly follow. If she stopped, they would stand behind her without moving. Yun Luofeng finally couldn't take it anymore. He turned around and said angrily, What exactly do you want? The little girl bit her lips tightly and carefully glanced at Yun Luofeng. I want to follow you. She spoke very carefully, afraid that she would accidentally anger Yun Luofeng. Chapter 1175. If you follow me again, don't blame me for being impolite. Yun Luofeng gave the two a warning look and walked out of the forest. The little girl stopped. When she looked down, her eyes became misty again. Brother Zihao, what should we do? That bad woman will not let me go. The young man patted his chest confidently. Miss, don't worry. As long as I am here, I will not let you be in danger. Brother Zihao, it's my fault for dragging you down. The little girl wiped away her tears. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have to hide with me. Miss, it's my responsibility to protect you. I will not let you be in danger. Brother Zihao, I don't really understand. Why did you drag me along with her? The little girl tilted her head, her bright eyes full of curiosity. The young man thought for a moment. First, that woman is very powerful. She is at least a Holy Spirit practitioner. Second, did you see the jade pendant on her waist? The little girl nodded. I saw it. The word June is carved on it. Miss, do you still not understand the meaning of this word? On the 7 continents, there is only one person with the surname June. That person is the Lord of the spiritual state. In the forest, Yun Luofeng looked at the two people behind him, who were not following. He slowly breathed a sigh of relief. I've finally shaken them off. She did not know if it was her bad luck that something like this happened as soon as she arrived on the 7 continents. First, she was inexplicably treated as a killer. In the end, the 2 people who misunderstood her did not listen to her advice and chased after her. Master, I think that girl is pretty. Little Mo's voice came from his soul. Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow. You already have Little White. Why are you still thinking about someone else? Master, what I mean is that you can marry her to Xiao Shu. Little Mo said with a smile. Yun Luofeng smiled and shook his head. Forget it. Didn't you hear what they said? This little girl is being hunted. Before we know how strong the people who are hunting her are, it's better not to get involved with them. She was not afraid of trouble or danger, however. She was not willing to face danger for a stranger. Master, I think we should look for the soul fruit now. Even though we got a soul fruit from the Ji clan, it's not enough to heal Little Mo's soul. We need to look for more soul fruits. Since that's the case, let's continue. Yun Luofeng moved his shoulders, and a ray of light flashed across his narrowed eyes. Outside the forest was an ancient city gate. There was a long queue at the city gate. Yun Luofeng walked to the back of the crowd and looked at the long line of people in front of him. He frowned and muttered to himself, "What happened in this city? Why are so many people heading there?" Standing in front of Yun Luofeng was a young man. When he heard Yun Luofeng's muttering, he could not help but turn around to look at her. You don't even know what's going on, so why are you queuing? It's the registration day for the Western Continent Academy, and everyone here is here to register. Academy? Yun Luofeng was startled. There was also an academy in this foreign world? What does this academy mean? Yun Luofeng hesitated for a moment before asking shamelessly. Chapter 1176. The young man looked at her with disdain. Where did you come from? You don't even know about the Western Continent Academy? This Western Continent Academy is used to train spirit masters. Many of the geniuses of the continent are trained by this academy. I never thought that there would be people in this world who don't know about the academy. As he said this, the young man kept shaking his head, his face full of sighs. Perhaps he did not expect that there would be people who did not understand the Western Continent Academy. Master, I feel that there is a soul fruit in this place. Yun Luofeng, who was about to leave, suddenly heard Little Mo's voice, causing her to stop in her tracks. Soul fruit, are you sure? That's right. Little Mo nodded. It should be in this Western Continent Academy. Master, in order to find the soul fruit, I can only trouble you to go to this academy. Next. At the city gate, following the sound of this old voice, the number of people in front of them gradually decreased. The examination of the Western Continent Academy was strict, so many people did not pass the examination and left with a face full of frustration. Master. Fire appeared in front of Yun Luofeng out of thin air, his young face full of smiles. I also want to sign up. I want to go to the academy with you. Fire? Yun Luofeng frowned. This place is different from the limitless continent, don't be too ostentatious. Moreover, in this kind of situation, you should stay in the divine grimoire space, otherwise, if someone finds out about your identity as a spirit beast, it will definitely cause unnecessary trouble. Her words were said through soul sound transmission. Other than fire, no one else could hear it. Don't worry, Master, I only ran out when I saw that no one was paying attention. Fire stretched and said. Moreover, I stay in the divine grimoire space all day long. It's too boring, I want to come out and get some fresh air. Yun Luofeng was startled. Then it's up to you. Fire stuck out her tongue coquettishly. She knew that her master was unwilling to reject him. Next. Very quickly, the long line in front of them disappeared, leaving only Yun Luofeng. This is the stone to test your level. Just put your hand on it. The old man said without raising his head. Yun Luofeng placed his hand on the stone, and the entire stone became calm. The old man was a little surprised. He raised his head to look at Yun Luofeng and said unhappily, Miss, are you teasing me? The minimum requirement to enter our West Continent Academy is to be a heavenly spirit practitioner. You don't have any strength, so what are you doing here? Next. Yun Luofeng's hand pressed tightly against the stone, as if there was something inside the stone that was absorbing the spiritual power in her body, making it impossible for her to move her hand away. I've already said the next one, you can. The old man was just about to get angry, But in the next moment he was dumbfounded. A powerful storm was set off on the girl's body. Her clothes fluttered and her hair danced in the wind. She pressed her palm against the stone, and countless strands of spiritual energy surged into the stone. However, the stone didn't seem to be full and continued to absorb Yun Luofeng's spiritual energy. What's going on? The old man was scared out of his wits. Clearly, he did not know what was going on. Why would the stone suddenly absorb Yun Luofeng's spiritual power? No, didn't the stone fail to detect her level? In other words, she was just a normal person and not a spiritualist. But why was there such an endless stream of spiritual power in her body? Chapter 1177. There was so much spiritual energy that it could fill up the entire ocean. Genius, she's definitely a genius among geniuses. The old man suddenly realized something and cried out in surprise. Someone who possessed so much spiritual energy, if she wasn't a genius, what was she? Even if she hadn't started cultivating yet, as long as she was nurtured, she would definitely become an exceptional genius. No, he had to inform the dean about this. You've passed. Also, today's registration ends here. Everyone else can come back tomorrow. After saying this, he hurriedly left. Yun Luofeng's voice suddenly rang out, causing him to stop before he could even take a step forward. My sister wants to sign up with me. I wonder if she can get in? Yes. The old man hurriedly nodded. That won't be a problem at all. I have something to do now and have to leave. You can come to the academy to find me on the first day of school. After saying this, the old man turned and left. His figure was very hurried, and he quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Yun Luofeng glanced at the stone that had been left behind, frowned slightly, and asked via soul telepathy. Little Mo, what's going on? Little Mo pondered for a moment before replying. Master, your spiritual energy is a bit special. This broken stone can't detect your spiritual energy, but it can sense that your spiritual energy is something good. That's why it wants to devour all of your spiritual energy. Yun Luofeng's face lit up with an evil smile. According to what you've said, doesn't that mean that this stone has become a spirit? Master, there are many strange things in this world. It's not strange for a stone to have developed a mind of its own. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin as his eyes flashed with deep thought. Now that we've successfully passed the registration, we only need to wait for a few days to enter the academy. Little Mo, when the time comes, pay attention to where the fruit of the soul is. After I obtain it, I will leave the academy. After all, Yun Xiao is still waiting for me. All right, master, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. With my abilities, I will quickly find the fruit of the soul for you. West Continent Academy. In the elders' room, a group of old men were discussing problems. At this moment they saw a figure quickly run in from outside the door. Panting, he said, Elders, there's been an unexpected situation during today's registration. What unexpected situation? The one who spoke was a gray-robed elder. He looked at the old man in front of him and asked indifferently. The old man wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. When I was testing the applicants, I found a young girl. She doesn't seem to have any cultivation. No cultivation? This kind of thing is not a big deal, just declare her a failure. The gray-robed old man frowned and said impatiently. The old man continued. But the stone is constantly absorbing her spiritual energy, and her spiritual energy seems to be endless. It's even wider than the ocean. Because of this, I've specially come to inform the elders. What? The elders stood up one after another, their eyes filled with astonishment. Limitless spiritual power? That was the characteristic of the legendary nihility physique. Those with the body of nothingness are all 1 in a million geniuses. I never thought that such a genius would appear in our West Continent Academy, ha ha ha. The gray-robed old man burst out in laughter. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, This genius is mine. Don't fight with me. Chapter 1178. Elder Su Kong, you've already acquired a genius. Why don't you give this one to me? She will grow faster if she follows me. You're a doctor. What are you saying? That genius isn't a doctor. It's better if you find a student who is a doctor. Who says doctors can't take her as a student? I have my eyes on this genius. What's wrong with that? The elders argued until their faces were red. Nobody was willing to give way. The old man wiped off his cold sweat and said carefully, "Elders, didn't you say that the next genius would be given to Elder Extraordinary?" During the registration period, Elder Extraordinary wasn't in the school. Therefore, the other elders who had acquired geniuses had already discussed this. If they were to encounter another genius with outstanding talent, they would give it to Elder Extraordinary, who knew that in the end, they would start arguing again. The entire elders' quarter silenced at the old man's words. All the elders' gazes were fixed on him. Their eyes were filled with anger and viciousness. The old man shuddered. He subconsciously took 2 steps back, afraid that the elders would kill him to silence him. Remember, when Extraordinary returns, you are not allowed to say anything. Su Kong glared at the old man and warned, "If I find out that you've said one word, you're done for." "That's right. You are not allowed to tell Extraordinary. We'll discuss who gets this genius. As for Extraordinary, we'll give the next genius to him." The elders nodded in agreement. One less person meant less competition. It was better than so many people fighting over one genius. "I suggest that we let the genius choose for herself. Whoever she wants to follow will be her master." Among the crowd, the elder in red raised his hand and suggested. The others nodded in agreement. "That's not a bad idea. There's no point in us arguing like this. It's better to let her decide for herself." However, the elders were all confident in themselves. They believed that they could win Yun Luofeng's heart. Nightfall. Yun Luofeng pushed open the door and walked into her room. Just as she was about to undress, someone knocked on the door. "Come in." Yun Luofeng put on his clothes, his black eyes flashing. The door was pushed open and an old man walked in. His face was filled with embarrassment as he coughed dryly and said, "Miss Yun, I am truly sorry to disturb you so late at night. I am Elder Su Kong of the Western Continent Academy." "What's the matter?" Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and asked. Su Kong's expression became more and more awkward. He hurriedly took out a small box from his sleeve and handed it to Yun Luofeng. "This is my gift to you." In the Western Continent, there had always been people who gave gifts to the Academy elders, but only Yun Luofeng had made the Academy elders personally give gifts. "You don't come here for no reason. Tell me, what do you want?" Yun Luofeng glanced at the box before withdrawing his gaze. He asked with a smile that was not a smile. The void laughed twice. "Miss Yun, it's like this. I have taken a fancy to your talent. I hope that you can become my disciple." "This?" Yun Luofeng frowned. "I'm afraid I'll have to think about it." She did not directly refuse. Instead, she said that she would consider it. This made Su Kong feel relieved. As long as she was willing to consider it, it meant that he still had a chance. "I'll put down the gift. If you want to be my disciple, you can find me anytime." Chapter 1179. After saying this, Su Kong hurriedly left, worried that Yun Luofeng would return the gifts to him. After he left, the other elders of the West Continent College came to visit Yun Luofeng with gifts. They only had one goal, and that was to make Yun Luofeng their disciple. Of course, they had the same thought as Su Kong. They were afraid that Yun Luofeng would reject them and leave after throwing the gifts, leaving Yun Luofeng staring blankly at the table full of gifts. "Master, these old fellows have put in a lot of effort to win you over. These gifts are very precious, keep them well." Hearing Little Mo's voice, Yun Luofeng returned to her senses. She kept the gifts in her spatial ring and smiled. "Little Mo, help me take a look at these gifts and see which one is the most precious." After giving the order, Yun Luofeng stretched and walked lazily to the bed. She took off her clothes and lay under the warm blankets. A few days later, the registration for the West Continent College ended, and all the students headed for the college gates. From afar, Yun Luofeng saw 2 familiar figures in the crowd, and her eyes flashed with surprise. The 2 people also saw Yun Luofeng, and were stunned for a moment before walking over to her. "What a coincidence." And Zihao rubbed the back of his head. "You're here to study too?" Yun Luofeng glanced at the 2 people. If she had not been sure that she had shaken them off, she might have thought that they had been following her. "Miss, I haven't asked for your name. I'm really sorry for mistaking you for an assassin." The young man chuckled and tried to strike up a conversation. "Yun Luofeng." Yun Luofeng replied indifferently. The little girl's gaze was fixed on the jade pendant on Yun Luofeng's waist. She suddenly looked up at the girl in white. Where did you get this jade pendant from? Someone gave it to me. This jade pendant was a meeting gift from Jun Fengling. That was why she had carried it with her. The little girl and Nziheo looked at each other and asked, May I know the name of the person who gave you the jade pendant? Jun, this word was like a clap of thunder that fell into the ears of the two people. Nziheo's emotions surged. Could it be that the person who gave her the jade pendant had a close relationship with the continent lord of Ling Continent? He had a feeling that as long as he stayed by Yun Luofeng's side, he and the young lady would be safe. Miss Yun, since we've all come to this academy, you'll be our senior sister from now on. If there's anything you need me to do, you can ask me to do it. I'll definitely do it without hesitation. This time, Nziheo was not as thick-skinned as before. Instead, he used his relationship with West Continent College to get closer to Yun Luofeng. As long as he could keep them by his side, running errands for her was not a problem. I've seen pickup artists before, but I've never seen anyone with such lousy pickup skills. A young and tender voice came from an ancient tree next to them. Fire jumped down from the treetop and stood beside Yun Luofeng. Her face was full of smiles as she turned to look at Yun Luofeng. Elder sister, do you think I'm right? Previously, Yun Luofeng had instructed her not to call her master outside, otherwise, it would be very easy to expose Fire's identity. Miss Yun, is this your sister? Nziheo's eyes lit up. Your sister is as cute as me. Fire's small face darkened. She glared at Nziheo fiercely. If you look at me again, I'll poke your eyes blind later. Chapter 1180. Nziheo smiled awkwardly and hurriedly retracted his gaze. It was not easy for Yun Luofeng to not chase him away. He did not want to ruin their current relationship. Everyone. At this moment, the old man who had helped everyone register a few days ago stood at the front. He cleared his throat and said, Our West Continent College is divided into 3 categories. One is cultivation, one is medical skills, and the last is beast taming. You can choose the category that you are more interested in later. As the old man's voice rang out, the crowd fell silent. Everyone stared at him without blinking. In addition, before the college reopens, there will be a test. Only by passing this test can you successfully enroll. I wish you good luck here. The old man smiled and said. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone started discussing and was curious about the upcoming test. All right, you can all go and prepare. The test will be held in 3 days. The old man looked at the crowd and walked to Yun Luofeng's side. Before he left behind these words. Come with me to the elder's office. The elders want to see you. Because he had purposely lowered his voice, only Nziheo, who was standing next to Yun Luofeng, could hear what he had said. A light flashed in Nziheo's eyes. He realized that he had not followed the wrong person. Yun Luofeng definitely had the ability to protect them. However, Yun Luofeng did not know what he was thinking. She followed the old man into the elder's office. At this moment, many elders were already waiting in the elder's office. When they saw Yun Luofeng enter, their eyes lit up and they quickly walked up to her. Miss Yun, what do you think? Who do you want to be apprenticed to? Everyone's eyes were on her. There was nervousness in their eyes. Yun Luofeng stroked her chin and blinked. I've seen all of your gifts. I like all of them. If I had to choose one, it would be very difficult. Her voice made the elders even more nervous. They were afraid that she would reject them. Miss Yun, do you have a favorite? Yun Luofeng smiled. I feel that I can be apprenticed to all of you. Ever since she came to West Continent College, little Mo realized that the fruit of the soul was in the elder's office. Therefore, she had to enter the elder's chamber to find the fruit of soul. Therefore, acknowledging this group of elders as his master was the best choice. The elders were stunned by his words. They looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. All the elders are taking in the same disciple? This has never happened since ancient times. The elders of the Western Continent Academy were all in a competitive relationship. Thus, they had never considered accepting a common disciple. I think this is feasible. Since none of us are willing to give up on her, then let's all be her master. Void said after a moment of silence. Looks like that's the only way. I don't want to give up on her. What about you guys? Another elder chimed in. All the elders nodded, their eyes glowing as they stared at Yun Luofeng. Su Kong coughed dryly and explained with a smile. Disciple, you will be our disciple from now on. Let me solemnly introduce myself to you. I am the Western Continent Academy's elder group's void. The white-robed one beside me is called Emptiness, the red-robed one is Ling Hai, and the one with the protruding mouth and monkey cheeks is called Cheong Tian. As for the only female among the elders, she is Shuang. Now that you have become our disciple, even if we old fellows risk our lives, we will not let anyone bully you. Chapter 1181. Oh yes. Shuang seemed to remember something. She blinked her beautiful eyes and said, I heard that our disciple has yet to become a cultivator. Based on her abilities, she can't participate in the Academy's assessment. Why don't we just cancel her assessment and let her advance directly? That's a good idea. Our disciple has such soft and tender skin. How can she go through the assessment in such a place? I don't agree. Ling Hai agreed with Shuang. Since Yun Luofeng had already received their help, there was no need for her to participate in the assessment. She could directly enter the academy. There's no need. However, in the face of the elders' good intentions, Yun Luofeng shook her head and refused. I can enter the academy based on my own abilities. I don't need you to open any back doors for me. Haha. Su Kong laughed heartily. He stroked his snow-white beard and nodded in satisfaction. You're my disciple indeed. All right. I agree to let you participate in the assessment. If you really can't do it, you can give up. I'll get someone to protect you. As the stone had not measured Yun Luofeng's level previously, these elders had assumed that she had yet to embark on the path of cultivation. Hence they had made this decision. In the face of these elders' good intentions, Yun Luofeng did not reject them, nor did she explain herself. She had come here for the fruit of the soul. Before that, she must conceal her powers. Otherwise, if others were to find out about her abilities, they would definitely suspect her motive for entering the academy. Before obtaining the fruit of the soul, she would never reveal her powers. Disciple, have you decided which category to choose? Shuang looked gently at Yun Luofeng and spoke in a gentle tone. On this mainland, doctors are more popular. Disciple, if you learn medicine from me, you will definitely be revered by everyone. Ling Hai said with a gentle smile. Medicine is too boring. How can it be as interesting as taming beasts? My precious disciple, learn beast taming from me. When the time comes, I'll catch a mount for you. No. Her area of excellence is in cultivation. Hence, it's better for her to focus on cultivation. Medicine and taming beasts are not suitable for her. The elders began to argue once again. They argued until their faces were red, and they would not stop until they achieved their goal. Watching these people argue, Yun Luofeng's mouth twitched. She turned to look at the old man who had brought her here. Is this how the academy's elders behave? The old man was a little embarrassed. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. It's true that they often get into disputes over items or geniuses. But to this extent, perhaps this is the only time. In other words, if it weren't for Yun Luofeng, the elders wouldn't have such a dispute. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile, interrupting the old men's endless argument. You guys don't have to fight anymore. I prefer free learning. Yun Luofeng gently stroked her chin, slightly blinking her eyes. An evil smile appeared at the corner of her lips. So in the future classes, I may often be absent. Right now, I'm just letting you know in advance. Back then, when she was in China, she often missed classes. After all, compared to studying, she would rather study alone voidside helplessly. You can do whatever you want. Who asked you to be our disciple? You don't have to go if you don't want to study. However, if you have any knowledge that you want to understand, you can look for me at any time. Chapter 1182. All right. Yun Luofeng stretched lazily and looked at the elders with his evil eyes. If there's nothing else, I'll go down and rest first. Go. Su Kong waved his hand. In this academy, if someone bullies you, come and find Master. Master will help you vent your anger. Yun Luofeng paused in his footsteps, and a warm feeling flowed through his heart. She had come to the Western Continent Academy with a purpose. Even if she had taken these people as her master, she also had her own purpose. However, these people really treated her as their disciple. When the young girl's snow-white dress disappeared, the elders retracted their gazes. The smile on their old faces gradually disappeared. What happened? Su Kong's eyes darkened as he asked coldly. Xueying looked at the few old men in front of her and shook her head helplessly. The Limitless Sect has been exterminated. What? Limitless Sect? Shock flashed across Ling Hai's eyes. The Limitless Sect's strength doesn't seem to be inferior to our academy. Who exactly has the ability to destroy the entire Limitless Sect? Xueying laughed bitterly. Have you forgotten what happened a while ago? The Limitless Sect fought with a young man and sent all their experts to chase after that young man. Among them, there were also a few other great powers that interfered. Unfortunately, so many experts from so many powers were unable to do anything to that young man. In the end, the Limitless Sect was even exterminated by that young man. Hiss! All the elders sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes filled with shock. What's that young man's name again? I think he has a title. Su Kong frowned. She patted her head and raised her head to ask. I know that. When Cheong Tian heard this, he immediately jumped up and said with a smile, that young man's title is Ghost Emperor. Ghost Emperor. These two words caused Su Kong to fall into deep thought once again. After a long time he asked, what did those powers say? Judging from your expression, it shouldn't be as simple as the Limitless Sect being exterminated. The corners of Xueying's mouth curled into a cold smile. Those few great powers want our academy to help them deal with the Ghost Emperor. Help! Hearing this, Su Kong could not help but frown once again. Our Western Continent Academy has never cared about the grudges of the continent. Moreover, this matter was originally a few great powers who wanted to snatch the treasures of others. What face do they have to ask our academy to help? I think my elder brother is right. Su Wuwang glanced at his elder brother. The Ghost Emperor isn't simple. It's best if we don't get involved. Otherwise, the Limitless Sect might end up like us. Haha. Ling Hai laughed out loud. To be honest, I really admire the Ghost Emperor. If I had met him earlier, I would have tried my best to take him as my disciple. Forget it. Xueying laughed bitterly. This Ghost Emperor has too many troubles. If you accept him as your disciple, you'll have to clear away all the troubles behind him. Look at how many people on the mainland want to kill him, but he just has to go against them. He really isn't willing to suffer any losses. Exterminating the Limitless Sect just like that? Weren't they afraid of incurring public anger? I think it's better for Feng Er to be his disciple. Feng Er is a woman after all, so she's definitely more sensible than the Ghost Emperor. At that moment, Xueying had no idea that the troubles behind Yun Luofeng were no less than Yun Zhao's. By the time she found out, it was already too late. She could only secretly shed tears of regret while clearing away the troubles behind her. Chapter 1183. At the thought of Yun Luofeng, the haze in the hearts of the elders dissipated, and a proud smile appeared on their faces. We are lucky to have such a genius disciple. When the other elders find out, I wonder if they will have the urge to cry, haha. There were many elders in the West Continent Academy, but some of them did not stay in the elders' room, so they did not know about Yun Luofeng. The West Continent Academy arranged cultivation rooms for each disciple. Even at night, they would sleep in these cultivation rooms. The cultivation rooms were ranked according to the level of the students. Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow. The Yellow room was the worst and it was the most ordinary room. The spiritual energy in the cultivation room was not abundant enough. On the contrary, the Emperor's room was as luxurious as the house of a rich family, and the spiritual energy was so abundant that it could turn into a thick fog. Cultivating here would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. As for the ranking of the students, there were 4 lists and these 4 lists were named according to Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow. Any new student was on the Yellow list. If they wanted to advance, they had to challenge a disciple on the Xian list. If they wanted to advance, they had to fight with a disciple on the Earth list. Other than the Yellow list, which had no restrictions, the other lists had a number of people. The Xian list could only have 50 people, the Earth list had 20 people, and the Heaven list had 10 people. Therefore, if they were challenged by a disciple on the Yellow list and failed, they could only retreat to the Yellow list and even have to exchange their cultivation rooms. If they wanted to stay on the Xian list, they had to start from the beginning and challenge a disciple on the Xian list. This was the rule of the West Continent Academy. This is your room. A disciple brought Yun Luofeng and the others into the cultivation room and said expressionlessly, "If you can't pass the trial in 3 days, you will have to hand over this room and leave the academy." And Ziheo frowned in disgust. "Isn't there a better room? This room is dirty and messy. How can my young miss stay in it?" The disciple sneered, and a sarcastic smile appeared on his face. "There is. But those rooms are not for people like you. You should stay here peacefully." A guard, a little girl who was only a few years old, and a young girl who had no cultivation at all. They actually dared to say that the room was bad? Didn't everyone come from this step? He didn't complain, so what qualifications did these people have? Be more polite. And Ziheo was a little angry and turned to glare at the guard. It didn't matter if he was humiliated, but he would never allow his young miss to be humiliated. Just as Ziheo was about to continue fighting for his own conditions, he saw Yun Luofeng push open the door and slowly walk in. She sat down by herself and took out a tea set and tea leaves from her space ring. She calmly brewed a cup of tea for herself as her deep, black eyes remained calm. And Ziheo's voice suddenly disappeared. Yun Luofeng didn't even despise the current environment. As a man, what could he not tolerate? However, "Miss, I've wronged you." And Ziheo lowered his head and said apologetically. Even during the days when they were on the run, he had never given his young miss such a poor living environment. Even if he had to go begging, he would definitely let the young miss live a comfortable life. But now that she had come to the West Continent Academy, the young miss, who had never suffered a bit of hardship, had to live in such a dilapidated room. Chapter 1184. "It's all right, Brother Ziheo," little Loli smiled cutely. "We don't care about so many things anymore. It's good enough that we have a place to stay." And Ziheo was so touched that tears streamed down his face. His miss was so sensible. She knew that he had been through a lot lately and still did not forget to comfort him. Sob sob. And Ziheo wiped his tears. "Miss, I will definitely let you live a good life in the future." While the master and servant were speaking emotionally, Yun Luofeng had already poured herself a cup of tea. She slowly brought it to her lips and tasted it. She looked at the two of them as if she was watching a good show, and the smile in her eyes deepened. "Miss Yun." And Ziheo wanted to enter the room to greet Yun Luofeng, but the girl waved her hand and the door slammed shut with a bang, giving him the cold shoulder. He rubbed his nose, but his expression was not dejected at all. "Miss, we are now living next door to her, so we can be considered close to her. I believe that one day we will be able to reform her." "Brother Ziheo." Little Loli gently bit her lip. "I think we should forget about it. She seems to think of us as trouble and doesn't want to get close to us." "No, miss, although we came to the West Continent Academy and those people can't find us for the time being, we are still in danger. If we can get her protection, it will be equivalent to setting foot on a life-saving ship. I cannot give up." Seeing Ziheo's excited expression, little Loli could not bear to discourage him and did not say a word. At that moment, little Mo appeared out of thin air in front of Yun Luofeng in the room and blinked lightly. "Master, you don't plan to help Heiress?" "Heiress?" Yun Luofeng was startled and glanced at little Mo in confusion. "The little Loli that you rejected. Don't you think she looks a lot like Heiress? I don't know her name, so I use this title instead." Yun Luofeng had not noticed at first, but now that he heard little Mo's words, he realized that the little Loli did indeed look a lot like Heiress. "No, it's too troublesome." Yun Luofeng took a sip of tea and glanced at little Mo. "You really want to help her? Have you forgotten Xiao Bai?" Little Mo coughed twice. "How could I forget Xiao Bai? Sai, that's not right. There was nothing between me and Xiao Bai before this. There was nothing between us." After saying this, little Mo suddenly reacted and looked at Yun Luofeng with resentment in his eyes. "Master, this little girl is rather special. Can't you smell the faint fragrance coming from her body? This fragrance doesn't belong to a normal human. It smells like some kind of spiritual fruit." Yun Luofeng was startled and became silent. His fingers tightly gripped the teacup as he asked, "What do you mean by that?" "Master, the little tree is just a tree, but it can transform into a human. So, I suspect that Heiress is a humanoid fruit. It is said that after consuming the humanoid fruit, one's spiritual power will increase greatly." Yun Luofeng's finger paused and his lips curled into a smile that was not a smile. Little Mo, are you trying to trick me again? Little Mo felt a little guilty. Master, do I look like the kind of person who would cheat others? I can scam others, but I won't scam you. How many times have you cheated me? Back then you said that Xiaobai's body was special, so I accepted her. Then you told me that her bloodline was more troublesome and could bring me danger. Chapter 1185. Because she had accepted it, she had to be responsible for Xiaobai. However, if Xiaobai was just a stranger to her, would she risk her life to save her in the future? The answer was definitely no. But now, no matter what danger Xiaobai was in, she would risk her life to protect her. Little Mo made up his mind. Alright, I'll tell you the truth. Heiress is only 6 years old and she doesn't know her own identity. That's why she isn't being hunted down by the powerful cultivators of the mainland. In 2 years, the fragrance on her body will be released and many powerful cultivators will come after her. Yun Luofeng took a sip of his tea and asked calmly. So, you want me to be hunted down along with her? Master, you've wronged me. Little Mo looked wronged. I'm doing this for your own good. Don't you want such a magical existence? Faced with Little Mo's tempting words, Yun Luofeng did not even think and said one word. I don't want to. Master. Little Mo was a little helpless. Actually, I sympathize with Heiress. As a humanoid fruit, even if she isn't hunted down by powerful cultivators, she can only live to 10 years old. Unless she can break through to the Holy Spirit realm before she turns 10. Of course, she won't be able to do it on her own unless you help her, Master. Yun Luofeng stood up and said lazily, Go wash up and sleep. Seeing that Yun Luofeng was about to turn back to the bed, Little Mo panicked. Master, don't you want to heal your hand? Other than the Holy Maiden tribe's holy water, there's something else that can help your right arm recover. I didn't tell you about it because it's too rare. Sure enough, Yun Luofeng paused in his steps and listened to Little Mo with his back to him. That thing is the juice of the humanoid fruit. Yun Luofeng turned around and looked at Little Mo. Juice. That's right, Little Mo nodded. This juice is Aurelia's tears. Yun Luofeng stroked his chin, his eyes flashing. You're not trying to trick me again, are you? Little Mo's face darkened. Why doesn't Master believe me even though I'm telling the truth? Is he that untrustworthy? Master, I promise I didn't hide anything from you this time. Yun Luofeng glanced at Little Mo and said, Let's wait and see. If Aurelia's enemy is more troublesome than the Sacred Lady tribe, then I might as well go to the Sacred Lady tribe to look for holy water. Little Mo lowered his head and sighed. It seemed that this was the only way. 3 days later, on the square of the academy, countless people were whispering to each other and discussing curiously. Cough cough. A dry cough rang out, causing the entire square to fall silent in an instant. Your mission this time is to spend 7 days in God-Burying Mountain. If you can safely leave the mountain within 7 days, then you'll be able to enter the academy. Otherwise, you'll be expelled. Of course, you don't have to worry about encountering danger. If you are in danger, someone will come and save you. As soon as the old man finished speaking, the crowd went into an uproar. God-Burying Mountain. It was said that it was extremely dangerous inside. Even gods would be buried in this mountain, especially at the top of the mountain. Perhaps even the Academy's elders wouldn't dare to go there. Fortunately, the Academy only wanted them to stay in the mountain for 7 days and not complete other missions. At that time, they only needed to find a quiet place to stay for 7 days. Chapter 1186. If all of you are ready, we will depart now. The elder's gaze swept across the crowd as he ordered coldly. Not long after, the noisy crowd quieted down once more. They waited for the elder to lead them to the Burial God Mountain. The Hidden God Mountain. There were 9 levels in total. The higher one went, the more powerful the spiritual beasts and traps they encountered. Normally, Holy Spirit cultivators only dared to linger around the 3rd level and below. If they accidentally stepped into the 4th level, they would die without a trace. At this moment, a group of people arrived at the Hidden God Mountain. They only stopped when they reached the foot of the mountain. The leader of the group was an elder. After he stopped, he turned around and said, We have arrived at the Hidden God Mountain. I wish you all good luck. Alright, you can enter the Hidden God Mountain now. In 7 days I will come and pick you up. As he finished speaking, The elder placed his hands behind his back and slowly left. Miss Yoon. And Zihao glanced at Yun Luofeng, who was standing in the crowd. He hesitated for a moment before walking up to her. He rubbed the back of his head and said with some embarrassment, "The Hidden God Mountain is very dangerous. Can I go with you?" What he meant was that he hoped to rely on Yun Luofeng to safely pass this test. Of course, if he was alone, he definitely wouldn't be so thick-skinned as to beg Yun Luofeng. Now that the miss was by his side, he definitely couldn't let the miss be in danger. Thus he threw caution to the wind. Yun Luofeng glanced at him, then walked towards the mountain peak. From start to finish he didn't reply to Zihao at all. What does she mean by this? Zihao stared at Yun Luofeng's back, his eyes full of curiosity. He clearly didn't understand what Yun Luofeng's actions meant. She didn't reject us, nor did she accept us. What does she mean? The little loli blinked. Her adorable little face shone brightly under the sunlight. Her gaze was fixated on Yun Luofeng's back the entire time. She said in a childish voice, "She didn't reject us? She probably agreed to let us follow her." Hearing this, Zihao's heart leaped with joy. He patted his chest and swore solemnly, "Miss, don't worry. I will definitely make her accept us. As long as we have her protection, we won't be afraid of that woman anymore." The little loli sighed. Yun Luofeng did not reject them, nor did she accept them. It would be very difficult to obtain her protection, however. She couldn't bear to disappoint Zihao, so she could only suppress the worry in her heart. The scenery of the Hidden God Mountain was pleasant, and the air was filled with dense spiritual energy. Just as Yun Luofeng entered the Hidden God Mountain, he heard a commotion in front of him. A scholarly-looking youth was knocked to the ground. His hair was disheveled and his fair, handsome face was filled with anger. He glared angrily at the group of people who had humiliated him as he clutched the medicinal herbs in his hand tightly. "Jingjiang. Hand over the medicinal herbs in your hands." The young man stretched out his hand towards the scholar lying on the ground and said arrogantly. The scholar hugged the herb tightly. "No, I'm going to use this herb to save my life. I can't give it to you. Besides, I was the one who found it first. Why should I give it to you? If you don't want to hand over the herbs, then die here." Chapter 1187. The young man's eyes darkened, and a fierce light flashed past his eyes. A sinister smile hung on his lips. Boom! Just as he was about to attack the scholar, a red light suddenly appeared out of nowhere and appeared in the void. It was an extremely beautiful girl around 6 or 7 years old. Behind her, it was as if 8 tails had extended out. Her eyes were blood red, and the flames on her body were endless. Fire! Yun Luofeng frowned, looking at Fire, who had run out of the divine grimoire space. A ray of light flashed past his eyes. Her gaze turned to the scholar who had fallen to the ground. If she was not wrong, Fire had seen this scholar being bullied, which was why he was so angry. Could it be that this scholar was an acquaintance of Fire? Otherwise, with Fire's personality, he would not be angry for no reason at all. "All of you go to hell." The flames spread out, causing the entire sky to be dyed blood red. The little girl stood in the air, looking down at the group of people below. Those people didn't even have the time to scream before they were burned to ashes by the flames released by Fire. On the entire mountain path, other than Yun Luofeng and the others, there was only the scholar who had fallen to the ground. "Little girl, thank you for saving my life." The scholar stood up from the ground, cupped his fists and said gratefully. Fire stared at the scholar without blinking. "Why did you become like this?" The scholar was startled for a moment. He looked at Fire in confusion, as if he did not understand what she meant by that. "Miss, did you recognize the wrong person? We have never met before, so we don't know you at all." Fire's body trembled, and he took a few steps back. It was also at this time that Yun Luofeng walked to Fire's side and gently hugged her shoulders. At this moment, she could clearly feel Fire's weak shoulders trembling non-stop, and her exquisite and cute face was deathly pale. "How could you forget me? You told me to stay in the Yi family and recuperate, you would protect me, but in the end you had to leave the Yi family temporarily because of some matters, and let your disciple take care of me instead of you, but in the end you didn't come back. I've been waiting for you in the Yi family for so many years. How could you forget me?" "Yi family?" Yun Luofeng's eyes darkened. This scholar was the reincarnation of the Yi clan's ancestor? In other words, the man Fire liked? Little girl, I really don't know what you're talking about. What Yi family? My name is Jingjiang. I don't know the Yi clan that you mentioned. A trace of doubt flashed in the scholar's eyes. He felt very strange in his heart. Where did this little lunatic come from? He only knew how to say some strange things. Fire shook his head with all his might. You have his aura on you, you must be him. However, your personality is very different from him. Suddenly, the image of a cultured and refined man appeared in her mind. The man stood at the peak of the mountain, pointing out the right path for the people of the world. With a wave of his hand, he could change the color of heaven and earth and cause the sun and moon to lose their light. It was so powerful that it made the world tremble. However, the man in front of her was so weak. How could he be the person she had hidden in her heart for 1,000 years? Little girl, my fiancé is seriously ill. I have to go back to save her life. I'll come back to thank you in the future. Fiancé? Fire bit her lips tightly, her face pale white. She raised her bright eyes, and the look in her eyes was heartbreaking. Chapter 1188. Back then, when you left me in the Yi family, you told me that you would come back to find me, and that you would marry me after I recovered from my injuries. However, in the end I couldn't even feel your aura anymore. In other words, he had died and was about to be reincarnated as a human. She didn't expect that when she sensed his aura again. This man already had a fiancé. How laughable. After experiencing one life, he had forgotten about her. He even thought she was a madman. Little girl, are you joking with me? Jingjiang sneered. I'm not a pedophile, I don't like a young child like you. Besides, I really don't know you and I don't know about the Yi family you're talking about. I really have something to do right now, so I'll thank you another day. After saying this, the scholar cupped his fists once again and left without looking back. When that figure disappeared, Fire's body finally couldn't help but lean against Yun Luofeng's chest. Tears silently flowed down his face. Master! He clearly promised to come back and find me, but now he has already forgotten about me. He even has a fiancé, what should I do? Fire's hands tightly gripped onto Yun Luofeng's clothes. His pale face was extremely shocking. Fire, are you sure she is the Yi family's ancestor? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. She couldn't help but suspect that such a powerful figure like the Yi family's ancestor would be bullied by a group of hoodlums here. Fire nodded his head with certainty. He has his aura on him, it's definitely him, there's no mistake. Master, what should I do now? He has completely forgotten about me. In this life there were only two people she was waiting for. One was Yun Luofeng, and the second was the Yi family's ancestor. She had already found Yun Luofeng, but the Yi family's ancestor had already forgotten about her. Fire, let's confirm if he's the Yi family's ancestor first. The young girl raised her hand and embraced Fire. Her fingers caressed her hair as she comforted her. Master! Fire wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes. I'm sorry, I saw him being bullied just now and ran out uncontrollably, causing you trouble. Fire! Yun Luofeng lowered his head, staring at Fire, and said with a serious expression, to me your trouble is not trouble at all. If he really is the old ancestor of the Yi family, even if you don't do anything, I will still save him. So, I don't blame you, you don't have to worry. But, if the academy sends someone to follow you, my identity will be exposed. Fire carefully looked at Yun Luofeng. She couldn't control her impulsiveness just now. Now that she thought about it, she realized that she had made a huge mistake. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. The people who came to God-Burying Mountain this time are all disciples of my cheap masters. When the time comes, I will explain things to them. You don't need to worry about your identity being exposed. Fire obediently nodded her head, and then, her pair of eyes that were dyed with a bloody light turned behind her. When Nziheo met Fire's gaze, his entire body trembled, and he anxiously guaranteed, don't worry, I didn't see anything, so I won't say anything. The little lowly also nodded. I didn't see anything either. Humph! Fire snorted lightly. If I hear a single word from you, then those people from before will be your fate. Chapter 1189. As soon as she finished speaking, her aura was revealed to the fullest. The powerful aura caused the world to lose its color, and it was so oppressive that it made it hard for people to breathe. Just as Nziheo and the little loli were about to collapse, fire finally withdrew the aura from her body. Her body turned into a ray of red light and drilled into the divine grimoire space. Everything that had happened today had dealt her a huge blow. She needed to calm down. "It's you guys." Suddenly, an arrogant voice came from the side. When Nziheo suddenly heard the voice, he was so scared that his entire body trembled. The little loli even hid behind him, revealing a pair of timid eyes. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and looked towards the direction of the voice. Immediately, he saw a young man dressed in brocade slowly walking over while being surrounded by a group of people. He raised his chin and arrogantly walked to the side of Nziheo and the other two. "You, what do you want now?" Nziheo pointed at the young man and shouted angrily, "I'm warning you, don't take a single step closer to us or else. Otherwise, what do you want?" The young man laughed mockingly. "Back then, you accidentally stepped on my medicinal herbs and actually escaped. You didn't expect that I would meet you here, did you?" Nziheo bit his lips. "Who said that was your medicinal herb? That medicinal herb was clearly growing in the mountain, and you didn't pluck it. I don't understand this either, so I accidentally stepped on it. Besides, I was the one who crushed the medicinal herb before you discovered it. When did it become yours?" That day, when he and the young miss were fleeing, they passed by a forest and accidentally trampled on a medicinal herb in the forest. It was also at that time that he met the young and energetic youth in front of him. The young man insisted that he had taken a fancy to this medicinal herb, but in the end, he was trampled on by Nziheo and asked him to compensate him. If not for the fact that Nziheo was more familiar with the forest and used all kinds of traps to shake him off, he and the young miss would not have been able to safely arrive at the Western Continent Academy. "I don't care so much. I only know that I have my eyes on that medicinal herb, but it was trampled to pieces by you. You must compensate me." The young man laughed coldly. He looked at the little loli hiding behind Nziheo, then looked at Yun Luofeng. A hint of greed flashed across his eyes. "However, these two beauties, one big and one small, are not bad. If you keep them, I won't have to compensate you." Nziheo was so angry that he almost punched the young man's face. He said angrily, "Don't even think about it." "Haha." The young man laughed out loud. "How dare you speak to me like this? Don't you know who my uncle is? Let me tell you, my uncle is a teacher of the academy. If you want to stay in the academy, you must listen to me." He licked his lips and turned his lecherous gaze towards Yun Luofeng. "Beauties, what future do you have by following this brat? Why don't you follow me? I guarantee that you'll have a good life. My uncle is a teacher in the academy, and has great authority in the academy. If you follow me, I guarantee that no one will dare to bully you." After speaking, he raised his hand to caress Yun Luofeng's face. Nziheo hurriedly covered the little loli's eyes. "Don't look. The following scene would definitely be very bloody. Not suitable for children." "Pa!" A crisp sound accompanied by a wild roar resounded throughout the entire sky. The young man held the hand that was broken by Yun Luofeng. He was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. His face had already turned ashen. "Stupid girl, you actually dared to hit me." Chapter 1190. Get lost. The girl's thin lips parted, her domineering voice reverberating through the mountain range for a long time. The middle-aged man who had been dozing off on the tree was suddenly startled awake by the voice. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and looked curiously at Yun Luofeng. The elders had sent him to protect Yun Luofeng, but what was going on? Wasn't that Wang Yiji's nephew Wang Mujing? Why was he at odds with Yun Luofeng? Just you wait. Wang Mujing gritted his teeth, glared at Yun Luofeng, then turned and fled. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, the girl in white would suddenly attack and not give him any time to react. He had his uncle's support anyway, just wait and see. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Within these 7 days there were already people who failed and left the hidden divine mountain. Of course, there were even some who found a place to hide so that they could leave after 7 days. At this moment, in the Western Continent Academy's elders' courtyard, a few elders heard the middle-aged man's report and looked at each other, seeing the shock in each other's eyes. "You're saying that Fenger has a humanoid spiritual beast?" Su Kong's eyes darkened as he asked. The middle-aged man nodded. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. That spiritual beast is an 8-tailed fox. It's very powerful. After hearing this, the silent old man's expression finally changed. If Fenger has a humanoid spiritual beast, there's no need to worry about her safety. Shui Ying's lips curled into a faint smile. That's right, this matter must be kept a secret. Otherwise, if the people from the Western continent hear about it, they'll definitely try to murder her. That's right, Shui Ying is right. Emptiness nodded and said, for the safety of our precious disciple, we must not spread this matter. Also, other than the humanoid beast, did anything else happen to Fenger? The middle-aged man blushed and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. That 8-tailed fox seems to have fallen out of love. Miss Yun has been comforting her. I felt bored so I took a nap. When I woke up, I found that Miss Yun and Wang Mujing had a conflict. Wang Mujing? Who? Ling Hai frowned. With his status, he would not remember a student's name. The middle-aged man wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Wang Mujing is Wang Yiji's nephew. Wang Yiji, who is this? Ling Hai's frown deepened. The middle-aged man was sweating more and more. Elder, Wang Yi is a teacher of the academy. An academy teacher? Ling Hai sneered. A mere nephew of an academy teacher dares to be so arrogant? How dare you bully my disciple? Having obtained such an outstanding disciple, I can't wait to hold her in the palm of my hand and keep her in my mouth. Who allowed those bastards to bully my disciple? Among the elders of the academy, Ling Hai's temper was the worst. If he really got angry, no one would be able to stop him. Elder, I didn't see what happened earlier, so I'm not sure if Miss Yun was bullied. The corners of the middle-aged man's mouth twitched slightly. However, when Wang Mujing left, I noticed that his hand seemed to be broken. On the other hand, Yun Luofeng was completely unharmed. Ling Hai glared at him. He didn't bully my disciple. Did my disciple bully him? My disciple is so obedient, how could he bully others? Besides, Wang Mujing's broken arm is definitely his own doing. Chapter 1191. In Ling Hai's eyes, Yun Luofeng was an obedient child. How could she bully others? It must have been Wang Mujing who was courting death and offended Yun Luofeng, causing her hand to be broken by the spiritual beast in her hands. The reason why Ling Hai did not think of Yun Luofeng. That was because in the test a few days ago, Yun Luofeng did not have any level. It was obvious that she had not started cultivating. The middle-aged man was sweating profusely, but in his heart, he felt sympathy for Wang Mujing. He hoped that this pair of uncle and nephew would be more tactful and not provoke Yun Luofeng. Otherwise, they would not be able to endure the anger of the elders. After the middle-aged man left, he saw Yun Luofeng, who was dressed in a snow-white dress, walk in from outside the elder's room. She raised her eyebrows, looked at the angry old fellows in front of her and asked, "What happened? Who offended you?" Ling Hai abruptly returned to his senses. When he saw Yun Luofeng walk into the room, his originally angry face abruptly became full of smiles. Su Kong and the others looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. All these years, Ling Hai was different from them. They had all accepted many disciples, but only Ling Hai did not place any of the geniuses in his eyes. It could also be said that Yun Luofeng was the only disciple he had accepted. How could he not protect her? It's fine. Ling Hai walked to Yun Luofeng's side with a face full of smiles. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. Looks like you have successfully passed the trial. From now on, you are a disciple of our Western Continent Academy. Yun Luofeng saw that the few old men did not ask about fire, so she did not bring it up. She nodded slightly and said, "This time I came to ask for a leave of absence." Leave? Ling Hai looked at Yun Luofeng suspiciously. You just entered the Western Continent Academy, and you want to ask for leave? That's right, I still have something to take care of. At the latest, I will be back in a month. Fire's mood was very low. If she did not help her solve this matter, perhaps she would never be able to walk out of this haze. All right. Ling Hai sighed dejectedly. Then do you have anything you need my help with? I'll send a few guards to protect you. No need. Yun Luofeng smiled and shook his head. I can solve this matter myself. Masters, take care. She cupped her fists and turned to leave. Ling Hai looked at Yun Luofeng's back reluctantly. Only when her figure had completely disappeared did he withdraw his gaze. She has an 8-tailed fire fox. No one will be able to hurt her. Don't worry. Su Kong walked to Ling Hai's side, patted his shoulder, and consoled him. Even though Ling Hai was worried, he could only nod his head at this moment. I hope so. The sun was setting. The afterglow of the sunset shrouded the entire gate of the academy, emitting a dazzling radiance. Yun Luofeng walked out of the academy's main gate and saw Nziheo waiting at the entrance. He raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, "Did you find out anything about the matter I asked you to investigate?" Nziheo hurriedly nodded his head. "I found out. That man called Jing Jiang is the young master of the City Lord's mansion. Unfortunately, the young master of the City Lord's mansion isn't strong enough. That's why he was bullied. However, the reason Jing Jiang went to the hidden god mountain was indeed to find the god-burying flower to save his fiancée." As he said this, Nziheo carefully glanced at Yun Luofeng and said fearfully, Chapter 1192. He could tell that the little girl in red was deeply in love with Jing Jiang, but Jing Jiang already had a fiancée, so she was destined to be sad. "I will remember the help you have given me today. I will return it to you in the future." After saying this, Yun Luofeng took a step forward and was about to leave. Nziheo was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly said, "Can Miss and I go with you?" Hearing this, Yun Luofeng stopped in his tracks and shook his head. "If you follow me, it will be even more dangerous." She didn't know how many enemies she would encounter on this continent, so she naturally wouldn't bring Nziheo and Arale along. Also, she paused for a moment then continued, "Can you get a leave of absence?" Nziheo lowered his head dejectedly. No one knew what he was thinking. Turning his head to glance at Nziheo, Yun Luofeng slightly raised the corner of his mouth. "Don't worry, in this academy, no one will be able to hurt you too much. Instead, if you follow me, you might even lose your life." After saying that, she turned around and disappeared into the street without looking back. Jing City. It was indeed not far from the Western Continent Academy, only half a day's journey away. At this moment, at the entrance of Jing City, the girl in white stopped in her tracks. Her fingers gently stroked her chin, slightly narrowing her eyes as she stared at the ancient city gate. Swish! Fire shot out from her body, finally transforming into a young and cute little girl, landing beside her. Her expression was very nervous, and she didn't know where to put her hands. Yun Luofeng gently held her small hand and asked, "Fire, will you regret seeing him?" Fire shook his head, his face resolute. "Master, back then, after the divine medical grimoire left me behind, I was chased by a group of humans and was severely injured. It was his appearance that saved me, and now that I feel that he is in some trouble, I should help her." At this point, Fire's mouth had a hint of bitterness, but it was also somewhat relaxed. "After I help her this time, we don't owe each other anything." They owed each other nothing. When these two words came out of Fire's mouth, it caused Yun Luofeng's heart to suddenly tremble. "Fire, since he doesn't know you, then you should learn to forget about him." "All right," Fire said seriously. "After I solve his problem, I will forget about him. In this life, I will never think of her again." No one knew that when Fire said these words, her heart couldn't help but ache. The beautiful images of the past kept flashing through her mind, causing tears to almost fall from the corners of her eyes. But in order not to worry Yun Luofeng, she endured it. City Lord Residence. At the main gate, two guards enforced the law impartially, stopping Yun Luofeng and the other man. "Up ahead is the City Lord's mansion. Unauthorized personnel, please leave immediately." Fire raised his palm-sized face and stared straight at the two guards with his watery eyes. "I'm here for Jing Jiang." The two guards looked at each other, and a trace of doubt flashed through their eyes. After pondering for a while, he replied, "Young master is not in the mansion, but I can inform Miss Xiao." "Miss Xiao?" When Fire understood who this Miss Xiao was, the guard had already entered the door to report. Not long later, he walked out and respectfully made a gesture of invitation. "Miss Xiao wants you to enter." Fire tried his best to make his emotions normal, and then slowly walked into the courtyard. Chapter 1193. The house was deep. Inside the pavilion, a woman was sitting upright. Her green clothes were like muslin, and a purple belt was hanging down from her waist. She was as beautiful as a fairy. She sensed Yun Luofeng and Yun Luofeng walking in, and gently raised her eyes. The moment her beautiful eyes looked at Fire, a light flashed past her eyes, and her smile became even more moving. However, the woman's face was pale, and her lips were devoid of blood. She looked sickly. However, when Fire saw the lady's face, a burst of anger surged out from his body, and he gritted his teeth. Xiao Ru. It's you. It's actually you. Fire, do you know him? Yun Luofeng lowered his eyes and asked in a deep voice. Fire was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Back then, Yi saved me and established the Yi family for me. This woman was the disciple she had taken in after establishing the Yi family. Later on, because she wanted to seduce Yi, she was chased out by Yi. Why is she here? If it was said that Jingjiang didn't know her and that she was heartbroken, then Xiao Ru's appearance filled her heart with despair. How could this be? Yi was clearly not such a person. Why did he choose to be with Xiao Ru after forgetting about her? Xiao Ru smiled and slowly walked forward. Her steps were brisk, and her purple belt fluttered in the wind. She was so beautiful that no one could ignore her. Fire, long time no see. Fire's eyes suddenly shrank in pain. You know me? No, that's impossible. You're just a human, you can't live for so many years. How could you still remember me? Xiao Ru laughed. I'm lucky I accidentally learned a type of reincarnation ability. Every time I get old, I will commit suicide and find a young and beautiful woman to possess. Because of the possession, the body I snatch will gradually become my appearance. Fire, you once seized Master's favor, and for your sake, he did not hesitate to give such an overbearing order to the descendants of the Yi family, and the entire Yi family will serve you for the next 1,000 years. But now, I have become his fiancé. Even if he isn't as outstanding and powerful as he used to be, it doesn't matter. I only love him as a person. I only want to become his wife no matter how weak he is now. A smile appeared on Xiao Ru's pale face. However, I also believe that he's only temporarily weak and will grow stronger sooner or later. That's why I purposely injured myself and forced him to go to the Vault God Mountain to find the God-burying flower. Fire's eyes were filled with anger. Do you know that with his current strength, if he were to take this kind of risk, it would be very easy for him to die. So what if I die? If he dies, I can continue to look for him. Xiao Ru smiled slightly. Fire, you can also see how well Master treats me right now. For me, he is even willing to take this kind of risk. It is not in vain that I have searched for him for 1,000 years to find his reincarnation. Fire's body trembled even more. Originally, he had already blessed Yi. But who would have thought that the one who snatched Yi away would be this woman? Suddenly, the smile on Xiao Ru's face changed and she sobbed uncontrollably. She covered her face with her hands and her eyes were filled with grief. Ru, what's wrong? At first, Fire did not understand why Xiao Ru's face had suddenly changed, but at this moment, a familiar voice came from behind him. Jingjiang quickly walked to Xiao Ru's side with a nervous expression. He looked at the crying Xiao Ru and did not know where to start. Chapter 1194. Fire's face stiffened as she clenched her hands tightly. She opened her eyes and looked at the nervous Jingjiang, her heart aching so much that she could hardly breathe. Big brother Jing. Xiao Ru leaned on Jingjiang's chest in grief. Did I cause trouble for you? Just now, this lady warned me that if I let you look for the God-burying flower, you would lose your life in the hidden divine mountain. I also know that the hidden divine mountain is very dangerous. If it wasn't for your good luck, you might not have been able to return alive. Jingjiang's eyes were filled with anger. He turned around to face Yun Luofeng and Gu Lingji and said angrily, Miss, I thank you for saving my life. However, this does not mean that you can arbitrarily criticize my fiancé. For Ruer, forget about going to the hidden divine mountain to find medicinal herbs. Even if you want me to jump into the frying pan, I would be willing. What right do you have to control me? Big brother Jing, don't say any more. Xiao Ru held onto Jingjiang's arm tightly. I know I was wrong, I won't let you take risks for me in the future. After all, there's nothing better than you being alive, big brother Jing. It's all my fault, I asked for too much. Jingjiang's heart ached. He quickly turned around and wiped the tears from the corner of Xiao Ru's eyes. Ruer, what nonsense are you saying? For a useless person like me to have such a gentle and beautiful fiancé like you, is already a blessing that I have cultivated for several lifetimes. Xiaoru lowered her head as tears dripped down her cheeks. However, the corner of her lips raised into a complacent smile. Fire, in your previous life, for you, Master did not hesitate to become enemies with countless experts in the world, just to protect your safety. In this life, in his heart, there is only me. What are you two still doing here? Jingjiang raised his head and looked at Yun Luofeng and Xiaoru unhappily. Hurry up and leave, don't disturb my fiancé anymore. Big brother Jing. Xiaoru raised her head pitifully. Don't blame them, they are doing it for your own good. Even if it's for your own good. This red-clothed little girl asking me to leave you. What? Jingjiang flew into a rage. He didn't have the scholarly temperament he had when they first met. His eyes were full of resentment. He looked at Fire as if he was looking at an enemy. Little girl, I've already made it clear to you before that I'm not interested in a child like you. How dare you come to Jingcheng to destroy the relationship between me and my fiancé? My fiancé left me for my own good? If you really want my best, then don't appear in front of me for the rest of your lives. Fire raised his head and looked straight at Jingjiang with his big watery eyes. Do you really believe every single word she says? If I don't believe her, should I believe you? Jingjiang sneered. Ruer and I have been in love for 1,000 years. Ruer once told me that we were lovers 1,000 years ago. She searched for 1,000 years just to find me. Tell me, how can I let her down when she is so infatuated with me? Lovers of 1,000 years? Fire laughed. She looked at Xiaoru with ridicule. How could she say something like that? Moreover, he actually believed it? Fire. Yun Luofeng lightly patted Fire's shoulder and said in a low voice, Get out of the way. Fire was startled. She had never disobeyed Yun Luofeng's orders. Therefore, she took a few steps back. Yun Luofeng's steps were light, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Xiaoru. What do you want? Jingjiang's expression changed greatly. Just as he was about to stop Yun Luofeng, a gust of wind suddenly blew from Yun Luofeng's sleeve, instantly sending his body flying. Chapter 1195. Bang! Yun Luofeng kicked Xiaoru's body, fiercely kicking her out of the pavilion, and with a plop, she fell into the lotus pond at the side. This kick is to repay you for making Fire sad. Xiaoru struggled to climb out of the lotus pond, but at this moment, Yun Luofeng once again appeared in front of her, pulled her out of the pond and kicked her in the chest once again. This kick is because you framed Fire. The young girl straightened her sleeves, her domineering and demonic eyes swept across the stunned people. Her voice was arrogant and filled with killing intent. As long as I'm here, no one will be allowed to bully her. You! Jingjiang's face changed greatly. He pointed at Yun Luofeng and wanted to curse out loud. However, before he could say anything, he was interrupted by the young girl's evil voice. I don't think you are the person in Fire's heart, because Fire he wouldn't like a man like you who doesn't know right from wrong. After saying that, Yun Luofeng turned around and walked to Fire's side, raising his eyes to look at her. In order to repay your kindness, you want to come here and help him. But he doesn't need your help. Yun Luofeng paused, then continued. Moreover, you saved him in the Hidden God Mountain, so it can be considered as repaying your kindness. We can leave now. Fire nodded his head and followed closely behind Yun Luofeng. Perhaps it was because her heart had truly been broken this time, so much so that she did not even look at Jingjiang in the end. Ruer! Jingjiang quickly rushed in front of Xiaoru, supporting her battered and exhausted body, his face full of nervousness and worry. Are you all right? Xiaoru's heart was filled with anger. If it was his former master, in order to save the Fire, what kind of danger had he not gone through? Furthermore, he had managed to survive the pursuit of so many experts. At that time, he had said that Fire was someone he would protect with his entire life. He worked hard to break through himself and increase his strength, all in order to protect her safety. Why did he become so useless in front of her? I'm fine. Xiaoru stood up, her slightly lowered eyes flashing with unwillingness and anger. Did she really like the current Jingjiang? No, she had always believed that Jingjiang would one day become that expert from 1,000 years ago. Now she couldn't help but wonder if she was wrong. He was destined not to be the Yi clan's old ancestor who terrorized everyone. Ru-er. Jingjiang looked at Xiaoru nervously. Are you really okay? Xiaoru shook her head and said tiredly, I'm a little tired. I'll go and rest first. Ru. Seeing that Xiaoru was obviously unwilling to say anything more, Jingjiang became even more anxious. I'm sorry, I'm useless. I couldn't protect you. Xiaoru stopped in her tracks and the corners of her lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Big brother Jing, I'm a woman. I also want to be protected by my man. However, you're still so indifferent when someone treats me like that. You really disappoint me. Jingjiang was not indifferent. He was just scared silly. In addition, Yun Luofeng's speed was too fast, so he did not have the chance to react. Then what do you want me to do for you to forgive me? It's very simple. I want you to use your own strength to recover the other families in Jing City in the next few days, and then annex the other cities. I want you to become stronger. Can you do it? Xiaoru turned to look at Jingjiang. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. After all, I don't want to be bullied anymore. Only when you become strong can you protect me. Chapter 1196. Jingjiang nodded his head seriously, his eyes filled with determination. All right, I will go find those families now. If they don't agree, I will fight to the death with them. With that said, Jingjiang took one last look at Xiaoru. His eyes filled with determination, and turned to walk out of the courtyard. Xiaoru stared at Jingjiang's departing figure, the corner of her mouth raised into a smile. A person's potential is always forced out. If he were to rely on his own strength to reclaim a few families, then he would definitely encounter danger. At that time, he would be able to unleash his potential. In Jing City, the position of the city lord's mansion was no longer what it used to be, especially after Jingjiang appeared. That was why she asked Jingjiang to reclaim a few great families and show her some achievements. Master, don't blame me for being too ruthless. I really missed the time when you stood at the peak of the world and pointed out the right path for the world. Xiaoru's eyes flickered. If Jingjiang successfully recovered his former strength, then she would definitely follow him for the rest of her life. On the other hand, she didn't mind killing him herself and letting him start over. Outside the city lord's mansion, Fire's hand left Yun Luofeng's palm, his bright eyes filled with grief. Master, let's go back. You don't plan to stay any longer? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and smiled, his eyes staring deeply at Fire. Fire bit his lips. He has already forgotten about me, what's the use of me staying? Master, is it so easy to forget about the people from your previous life? Yun Luofeng muttered to himself for a moment, then suddenly raised his head, his deep black eyes staring at the azure sky and said, If there is a next life in the vast sea of people, as long as I meet Yun Xiao, I will recognize him with a single glance. Of all the living beings in the world, only he could give her such a strange feeling. Therefore, she only needed a single glance to recognize him. Fire lowered his head and remained silent. Suddenly, a figure hurriedly walked out of the city lord's mansion, aggressively walking towards the street. Fire was startled. Yi, what is he going to do? Worried, Yun Luofeng raised his head and glanced at Fire, raising the corner of his lips. If you are worried, I can bring you to see. Fire's heart suddenly trembled. She originally wanted to turn around and leave, but unfortunately, Jingjiang's actions just now were too abnormal, causing her to be worried. Master, I want to take a look. How could she forget her yearning for 1,000 years so easily? If it wasn't for Yi, she wouldn't have been able to live to see her master. Let's go. Yun Luofeng shook his head helplessly. Even if Fire promised to forget about him, it would not be so easy to let go of him. Ling family. The two guards who were on duty were stunned when they saw Jingjiang's aggressive aura. Young city lord, our patriarch is having tea with someone. He asked me to inform him before you enter. Jingjiang snorted coldly. Ignoring the guard's advice, he forced his way into the house. The two guards hurriedly stopped him. Young city lord, our patriarch really has something to say. Please let us go and inform him. Get lost. Jingjiang shouted angrily and was about to force his way through the guards. However, at this moment, Patriarch Ling, who was receiving guests in the main hall, was startled. He frowned deeply and said to the guest beside him, I'll be right back. With that, he quickly walked out of the hall. With a glance, he saw Jingjiang, who had forcefully broken through the obstruction, and a cold look flashed across his eyes. Chapter 1197. Young City Lord. I wonder why you've come to my Ling family so angrily? Jingjiang stopped, looked at Patriarch Ling and said straightforwardly, I want your Ling family to submit to me. Patriarch Ling was stunned for a moment, then laughed out loud. Did I hear wrongly? You want me to submit to you? Ha ha ha, young City Lord, we are polite to you because of the City Lord. Otherwise, what qualifications do you think you have for us to treat you differently? Jingjiang's face was filled with anger. I don't care so much, you must submit to me today. Only if you submit to me will Ruer marry me. Patriarch Ling sneered. Everyone said that the young City Lord was bewitched by a fox spirit and did not hesitate to go to the Burying God Mountain to take the risk. You came to cause trouble for my Ling family for a woman? Have you ever thought about your own strength? You are not allowed to speak ill of Ruer. She is the best woman in the world. None of you understand her. Jingjiang flew into a rage. He would not allow anyone to insult Xiao Ru. Ruer did not despise me for being weak and still followed me. With her beauty and ability, she could have found a better man, but she chose me. For her, not to mention the Ling family submitting, even if I were to go to hell, I would immediately jump in. Patriarch Ling said coldly, It's not that easy to make my Ling family submit. This time you were the one who provoked us first. Even if the City Lord returns, our Ling family is in the right. Men beat this guy up for me. Yes, Patriarch. In an instant, several figures appeared out of thin air in the Ling family courtyard. Those people quickly rushed towards Jingjiang and fiercely smashed their fists onto his body. Jingjiang felt as if his body was being struck by a hammer. The pain was unbearable, but when he thought of Xiao Ru's expectant expression, he endured it. For Ruer he could not give up. Bang! 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 Everyone punched and kicked Jingjiang. Jingjiang used his hands to protect his vital parts and clenched his teeth without making a sound. Master! Seeing that Jingjiang was about to be beaten to death by that group of people, Fire's expression suddenly changed. Just as she was about to step forward, Yun Luofeng reached out and pulled her back. You really want to go? Even if you save him, he won't appreciate it. He might even blame you for being a busybody. Fire stopped in her tracks. She smiled bitterly and shook her head. Master, as long as I think of the days we spent together, I can't ignore it. Even if she doesn't appreciate it, or if she blames me for being nosy, I just don't want him to die, that's all. As she finished speaking, she raised her little face and strode into the house. Stop! A delicate shout sounded from within the house, causing those people to stop what they were doing and look at Fire in confusion. Why is it you again? Jingjiang said angrily. I don't need you to meddle in other people's business. Go away. Fire did not say anything. His bright eyes looked at the Ling family head. Can you let him go? A strange light flashed across Clan Head Ling's eyes as his lips curled into a smile. It's not impossible to let him go, but I have a condition. What condition? I want you to be my son's child bride. Tiske, it was really rare to see such a beautiful girl. His son was only 10 years old and already liked to tease maids. If he gave this girl to him, he would definitely be very happy. Chapter 1198. Fire laughed. Her smile was bright and cute, but her eyes were cold and gloomy. Do you know why I asked for your opinion? Because the one in the wrong in this matter is Jingjiang. I don't want to do anything to you, so I asked you to let him go, but if you want me to be your son's child bride, then you have to ask your son if he has the life to enjoy it. Fire's brows were filled with a domineering aura. She lightly raised her chin and looked down at Patriarch Ling, who was standing in front of her. Patriarch Ling was stunned. This girl was only 6 or 7 years old. Why did the words she said not sound like a little girl of her age? Release him immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Fire bellowed. Hee. Patriarch Ling regained his senses and sneered. Then I would like to see how a little girl like you can be so impolite to me. Boom! Just as he finished speaking, a red light flashed, and Fire's small fist heavily struck Patriarch Ling's chest. Before Patriarch Ling could react, his body suddenly streaked across the air and smashed into a pillar at the side. Patriarch! Everyone ran to Patriarch Ling's side and hurriedly helped him up from the ground. Patriarch Ling wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes darkened and said coldly, Damned girl, if you dare touch me, I will let you have a good time. Men, capture this girl for me. Boom! In that moment, Fire's body surged with anger. Bright red flames floated around her body, domineering and ostentatious. The Ling family's guards did not dare to move forward. They could only hide far away and threaten her with the swords in their hands. What happened? An aged voice came from behind him, as if it was carrying a heavy pressure, causing one's heart to tremble uncontrollably. Yun Luofeng squinted his eyes and looked at the old man who was slowly walking out from the hall. This old man wore a loose robe, and his face was full of potholes, making him look especially terrifying. However, his aura was very terrifying, causing Yun Luofeng to frown. Fire, come back. After feeling the threat from the old man, she shouted loudly. Fire was startled. She turned and wanted to walk towards Yun Luofeng's side. But suddenly, the old man who was slowly walking out made his move. You've interrupted my conversation with Patriarch Ling. Don't tell me you want to leave so quickly? Fire. Seeing the old man's palm grabbing towards Fire, Yun Luofeng quickly rushed towards her. Unfortunately, it was too late. The old man had already appeared behind Fire, his palm releasing a terrifying power. Boom! Just as the old man's palm was about to come into contact with the fire, the stunned Jingjiang had already exploded with a powerful force. This power was even stronger than the old man's, forcing him to take a few steps back. You succeeded? Xiao Ru, who was hiding in the dark, was overjoyed. However, when she thought about how Jingjiang had used his power to put out the fire, she felt very unhappy. But, as long as Jingjiang could regain his former strength, everything she did was worth it. The smile on Xiao Ru's face grew wider and wider. In the end, it froze at the corner of her mouth. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with astonishment, and even her body began to tremble. How was this possible? Impossible. What he saw must be fake. In the courtyard, when Jingjiang saw the figure that had been separated from his body, he was completely scared silly. It was also a man dressed like a scholar. However, compared to Jingjiang, this man was gentle and refined. His sword-like eyebrows were dyed with frost, as if he could control the life and death of millions of people just by talking and laughing. Chapter 1199. His gaze was deeply fixated on Fire, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. Fire, long time no see. It seems like you've finally found the person you've been waiting for. At this moment, Fire's face was already covered in tears. Her young and tender face was covered in tears. I finally see you again. After 1,000 years they had met again, but in such a situation. Fire, back then I was forced to leave you and accidentally died at the peak of the mountain. In order to preserve this soul body, I exhausted all of my strength just to see you again. If not for Jingjiang's appearance, I would not have been able to leave that place, and I would not have been able to see you. The man's gentle eyes only had the shadow of fire, and his tone was gentle. Previously, my soul body had always been living in Jingjiang's body, and I was also recovering my strength in his body, all for the sake of waiting for you to appear. I originally only wanted to take a peek at you before reincarnating, but who would have thought? Yi, you bastard! Fire quickly rushed in front of the man and fiercely smashed his chest with her small fist. Her voice was hoarse as she roared. If I wasn't in danger, would you have never shown up? You saw me being bullied, you saw me so heartbroken, and you didn't even plan to appear? No wonder. No wonder he could feel Aye's aura in Jingjiang's body. It turned out that Aye's soul had treated Jingjiang's body as a house and lived inside. She had misunderstood everything. Aye did not forget her, nor did he fall in love with her. She had mistaken the others for Aye. Fire. The man held Fire's small fist, his voice becoming gentler and gentler. I was indeed wrong in this matter. I didn't want you to see the current me, but I didn't expect you to be so sad. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Fire's crying voice suddenly stopped. She raised her teary eyes, and the man's figure was reflected in her clear eyes. Aye, I miss you. The man patted Fire's shoulder, his cold eyes sweeping across the old man. After crippling your own strength, leave this place or else I will kill you. The old man's expression suddenly changed. He looked at the gentle and refined man with some fear. He steeled his heart and said, "This has nothing to do with me. If you want to look for someone, look for the Ling family. I'm just passing by." Master Hui, you can't do this. Ling family head's expression changed on the spot. Didn't you want to surround and kill the ghost emperor? Our Ling family's strength is not bad. We can definitely help you, please save me. Ghost emperor? Boom! Yun Luofeng's aura suddenly rose. His evil eyes stared coldly at Ling family head and asked, Did you just say the ghost emperor? Ling family head was stunned. He did not know what Yun Luofeng's words meant. The Yun Luofeng, Yun Luofeng. Ling family head glanced at Yun Luofeng. I'm not sure. It's said that the ghost emperor always wears a mask and never shows his true appearance. Feng. Yun Luofeng's eyes narrowed slightly, and the smile on his lips revealed a cold aura. I don't care who the ghost emperor is. All I know is that you mentioned the name of the ghost emperor. They even claimed that they would surround and annihilate him. Just because of this, all of you deserve to die. She didn't know if the ghost emperor they were talking about was Yun Shao. Chapter 1200. However, she would rather kill 10,000 people wrongly than let go of anyone who wanted to hurt Yun Shao. Ah ye, Fire raised his chin. If you want me to forgive you, then kill these people for me. The old man felt the rising killing intent from the man's body. He was so scared that his old face turned pale. He cried out in fear. No, you can't. Hua! As soon as he finished speaking, the man extended his finger and gently pointed at the old man. In that instant, the old man felt a pain in his throat. Blood spurted out like a pillar of blood, instantly dyeing the entire ground red. His eyes widened, and his body fell to the ground with a thud. All right. The man turned his head, his doting gaze enveloping Fire. Are you satisfied? If you're not satisfied, feel free to speak. As long as it's your request, I will definitely satisfy it. Fire bit her lips. I want you not to leave me, can you do that? The man's expression froze for a moment, then he smiled bitterly and said, I'm already dead. I'm now a soul without flesh and blood. I need to reincarnate. No, I won't let you go. Fire anxiously looked at Yun Luofeng. Master, you must have a way to preserve Aye's soul for a long time, right? Yun Luofeng was silent. Looking at her silent expression, Fire's heart tightened, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Silly girl. The man raised his finger and gently flicked away the tears at the corner of Fire's eyes. He smiled and said, So what if I stay? I can't take you as my wife. Fire, wait for me for another 20 years. In 20 years I will come find you. What if you forget me after you reincarnate? Fire lowered his head and said softly, No. The man's eyes were filled with determination. I will forget anyone, but I will never forget you. Fire, don't be deceived in the future. Remember, the person who doesn't know you is definitely not me. You have already been engraved in my soul. How could I forget you? All right. Fire raised his bright eyes. Then I'll wait for you. No matter how many years it takes, I'll wait for you. She had waited for Yun Luofeng for thousands of years, and she had also waited for Aye for thousands of years. How could she continue to wait for a few more decades? Silly girl, although you've lived for thousands of years, your body is too small. I really hope that you can grow up a little. That way we can get married earlier. The man lovingly caressed Fire's head, leaving a deep kiss on the tip of her hair. If you really can't continue to grow, it doesn't matter. Even if I feel guilty, I will definitely marry you. Fire looked at his own young body and fell into deep thought. Suddenly, a staggering sound rushed in from outside the courtyard. Xiao Ru's face was extremely pale, and her body was trembling uncontrollably. Her eyes were filled with jealousy, and she wanted nothing more than to tear Fire into pieces. Ruer. Seeing Xiao Ru appear, Jingzhang's heart was filled with joy. He quickly walked to her side and raised his hand to support her. Are you all right, Ruer? Get lost. Xiao Ru pushed Jingzhang away and scolded him in disgust. Don't touch me with your dirty hands. You're disgusting. Jingzhang was stunned. He could not believe that Xiao Ru, who was as gentle as water, would say such words to him. Chapter 1201. Xiao Ru did not even look at Jingzhang as she stared deeply at the man with her beautiful eyes. Master! She finally called out the name she had used for so many years, but her voice was trembling. Master, Jingzhang and I are innocent. I only thought of him as you, that's why I was with him. As if struck by lightning, Jingjiang was completely stunned. What did Ruer mean by that? All this time she had always thought of herself as someone else? The man raised his eyes to look at Xiao Ru. His expression was not as warm as water as when he was facing the fire. His eyes were so cold that it seemed as if they had frozen into ice. I have seen everything that you have done to the fire, and only someone like Jingjiang would believe your one-sided words. What's laughable is that you actually thought of such a stupid person as me. Master, I was wrong. Your disciple was really wrong. Xiao Ru's body trembled violently as tears streamed down her face. Such a beautiful person was crying so pitifully. It was likely that many men would be moved. Unfortunately, the man's face was already expressionless, and his expression was as cold as ice. You can go, don't appear in front of the fire again. I don't want you to disturb her. Xiao Ru's eyes turned red, and her jealousy and anger spewed out. Master, Fire is just a fox, what's so good about her? Why do you only dote on her? Bang! The man raised his hand and lifted Xiao Ru's body, causing her to fall to the ground in a sorry state. A trace of blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. She held her chest tightly with her hands as she looked at the man in despair. I've crippled your strength. Even if you continue to be reborn in the future, you won't be able to cultivate. This way, even if you take away the body of a peerless genius, you won't be able to pose any threat to the fire. Xiao Ru lowered her head, her heart trembling even more at this moment. Master was so protective of the fire, afraid that he would hurt her. He did not hesitate to cripple his own strength. Perhaps she had been wrong from the very beginning. Back then, if she had not insulted the fire out of jealousy, her master would not have chased her away in a fit of anger. Miss, the man's gaze gradually turned to Yun Luofeng, and a warm smile once again appeared on his handsome face. Seeing that you are so protective of fire, then I can leave in peace. With a master like you, fire is very happy. Yun Luofeng pondered for a moment, then said, 20 years later, if you forget fire, then I will absolutely not let you off. The man smiled. I'm sorry, but you won't have the chance to let me go. As he spoke, his body began to become transparent, as if he would dissipate with a gust of wind. Aye! Fire anxiously raised his hand, wanting to grab the man's hand. The man also stretched out his big hand and held Fire's small hand, but just as they were about to shake hands, the man's soul completely disappeared. Fire was stunned, her hands froze in the air, staring blankly at the direction the man disappeared in, unable to even shift her gaze away. She had missed him for so many years. Now that they had finally met, they had to separate again? Fire, if you want to cry, then cry. Yun Luofeng walked to Fire's side and patted her head comfortingly. Fire's eyes turned sour, she deeply held back her tears, and her small face was filled with determination. I believe that there will be a day when we meet again. That day it wouldn't be long before it came. Yun Luofeng squinted his eyes, his gaze sweeping towards the Ling family head. He raised his eyebrows and said, You just said that you want to surround and kill the Ghost Emperor. Then do you know where the Ghost Emperor is? Chapter 1202. Patriarch Ling fiercely swallowed his saliva. It's Phoenix Mountain. Phoenix Mountain? Yun Luofeng retracted his gaze and said, Fire, let's go. After saying this, she left on her own. Fire also regained his senses and hurriedly followed behind Yun Luofeng. Jingjiang ran in front of Xiao Ru once again. His face was pale as he said, I don't mind if you treat me as someone else. Now, can you come back to the city lord's mansion with me? Scram. Xiao Ru forcefully pushed Jingjiang away and stood up angrily. Why do you think I approached you before? I only treated you as my master. Otherwise, with your strength and talent, how could you win my favor? Jingjiang's face became even paler as he looked at Xiao Ru in grief. That's not what you said before. You said that you love me as a person and nothing else. Xiao Ru sneered. That's because I treated you as my master and thought that one day you would become stronger. Who would have known that you weren't him at all? You will never be able to achieve his achievements. Jingjiang, stop dreaming. Why do you think I want you to go to the God-burying mountain? And why do you think I want you to cause trouble for the great clans? That's because I want you to break through in the face of danger. Jingjiang's body swayed. He shook his head, not daring to believe what his ears had just heard. Ruer, you're lying to me. You're not that kind of person. You must be lying to me. Lie to you? Xiaoru laughed coldly. Are you worthy? Her last 3 words were like the final blow to Jingjiang. His body finally could not hold on any longer and fell to the ground with a bang. It turned out that in Xiaoru's heart, he didn't even have the qualifications to be deceived by her. It was laughable that he had risked his life for her. Jingjiang laughed and suddenly burst into tears. The sound of his unbridled cries shook the entire Ling residence, causing people to sympathize with him. Xiaoru staggered towards the door, completely ignoring Jingjiang, who was behind her. Her pale face was filled with despair. Not only was she a good-for-nothing now, she would never be able to obtain her master's heart. What was the point of possessing someone else's body so many times? Why not just grow old quietly in this life, erase all her memories and reincarnate as a human? Perhaps she wouldn't be in so much pain. At the foot of Phoenix Mountain was a simple and unadorned town. The originally quiet town was now filled with people. Hearing their conversations, one could tell that they were all here to encircle and kill the Ghost Emperor. At this time, in a corner of the town's tea house, the white-clothed girl gently took a sip of tea. She quietly listened to the noise around her, her beautiful face expressionless. It was as if she had nothing to do with it. Miss, did you come here alone to kill the Ghost Emperor? Suddenly, a voice came from the front. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the man who spoke. The man was not polite at all. He sat down in front of Yun Luofeng and poured himself a cup of tea. His handsome face had a handsome smile on it. Why did this Ghost Emperor provoke so many people? Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed as he asked. Why did so many people come to encircle and kill him? This. The man rubbed the back of his head. It seems that because the Ghost Emperor destroyed the Limitless sect, many people came to encircle and kill him. I just came to join in the fun and increase my strength. Haha. Chapter 1203. The Limitless Gate? Why would he want to destroy the Limitless Gate? Yun Luofeng took another sip of tea and asked. The man thought for a moment before replying. I heard that on that day, a relic had been unearthed. The Ghost Emperor and a few other great forces had rushed there upon hearing the news. However, the most precious treasure in the relic, the Heavenly Spirit Mirror, had been taken by the Ghost Emperor. As a result, a few great forces had chased after him in anger. Heavenly Spirit Mirror? If Yun Luofeng had not been sure at the beginning whether the Ghost Emperor of this mainland was Yun Xiao or not, after hearing the man's words, he was 100% sure. The reason was none other than the fact that the Heavenly Spirit Mirror was still in her hands. Since the Ghost Emperor had obtained the Heavenly Spirit Mirror, it naturally belongs to him. What right does the other forces have to chase after him? Yun Luofeng laughed coldly and said sarcastically. The man was shocked by her words. He wanted to stop her, but it was too late. In an instant, everyone in the tea house had their eyes on Yun Luofeng's face. My apologies, my apologies. The handsome man hurriedly stood up and said apologetically. My friend here doesn't know the reason behind the incident. That's why she spoke without thinking. I hope that everyone can forgive her this once. Humph. An old man from the seat in the middle of the tea house scoffed coldly and swept a cold glance at Yun Luofeng. Young lady, you should know what you can say and what you can't. The Ghost Emperor has always been in the wrong. So what if he had obtained the Heavenly Spirit Mirror? He doesn't even know how to use the Heavenly Spirit Mirror. He's just a dog in the manger. Furthermore, the Ghost Emperor doesn't belong to the West Continent. What right does he have to take something that belongs to the West Continent? That's right, the Ghost Emperor has committed a heinous crime. Even if the great forces chased after him, he shouldn't have killed the people of the Limitless Gate. Furthermore, the people of the Limitless Gate only chased after him. They didn't kill him. What right does he have to destroy the Limitless Gate? Miss, you're speaking up for the Ghost Emperor. Are you on the Ghost Emperor's side? If you're on the Ghost Emperor's side, we'll kill you right now. The man became more and more anxious. He continuously explained things to Yun Luofeng. Then he faced the crowd and said apologetically, she is my junior apprentice sister. She doesn't know the Ghost Emperor. This time she is a genius. She came here with me and didn't understand the situation. Seniors, please don't make things difficult for her. For your sake, I'll let your junior sister go for now. If there's a next time, don't blame me for being impolite. The old man snorted and said in a bad mood. In their eyes, the Ghost Emperor was the one who deserved to die. Who allowed him to take away the Celestial Spirit Mirror? The Celestial Spirit Mirror belonged to the Western continent. As an outsider, what right did he have to take it away? Let me tell you a story. Yun Luofeng smiled at the man sitting in front of him and said, there was once a murderer who was sentenced to death. The reason was that the murderer wanted to kill him. Out of self-defense, he accidentally killed the other party, which caused public anger. Do you know what those people said? The man blinked curiously. What do you mean? Those people said that even if the other party wanted to kill you, you shouldn't have killed him. Furthermore, you weren't killed by him, so what right did you have to kill him? So, I believe that if someone chases after you in the future, you can't fight back. You can only stand there and let them kill you. Yun Luofeng took another sip of tea and said nonchalantly. The man spat out a mouthful of tea. If Yun Luofeng had not dodged in time, the tea would have been sprayed all over his face. Chapter 1204. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, and his heart couldn't help but twitch a few times. At this moment, he could already see the angry gazes of those people. Miss, don't you think you're going too far? The old man slammed the table and stood up, looking coldly at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng smiled. I didn't mention the word Ghost Emperor in my words just now. I was just telling people a story. Could it be that my story is also bothering you? Yun Luofeng would eat anything and never suffer a loss. Those who fought with her would often be angered half to death. The old man's heart was filled with anger, but he couldn't find any fault with Yun Luofeng's words. That's right, she was only telling a story, and didn't mention the Ghost Emperor. What reason could he use to cause trouble for her? Therefore, the old man could only sit down. The anger in his chest was unbearable, and his entire body emitted a sinister aura. Bill. After getting the information he wanted from the man, Yun Luofeng threw an ingot of silver on the table and walked out of the tea house. This girl is quite interesting. The handsome man picked up the cup of tea in front of him and took a sip. He looked at Yun Luofeng with interest. However, he could not tell that Yun Luofeng was not interested in him at all. Instead, he wanted to get some information out of him. Fire appeared out of thin air on the roof beam, swinging his legs, his bright eyes flashing with a curious light. Master, when are we going to find Lord Yun Shao? Yun Luofeng absent-mindedly sat down and poured himself a cup of tea. He smiled faintly. I still don't know where Yun Shao is. When the time comes, I'll follow this group of people and I'll be able to see him. Fire blinked his eyes. I'm curious if Lord Yun Shao saw the small tree, what kind of expression would he have? Just as Fire finished speaking, Xiaomo's figure suddenly appeared in front of Yun Luofeng. He was holding a few months-old baby in his arms, and his young and tender face was filled with grievance. When I see Yun Shao, I'll throw the little tree to him. I don't want to accompany this brat all day long. Cluck cluck cluck. A bright smile appeared on the little tree's face as it giggled and opened its arms towards Yun Luofeng. Mother! Mother! Yun Luofeng was stunned. The little tree can talk? He's only 6 months old and he can already talk? And he spoke it so fluently? Little Mo glanced at Yun Luofeng. Xiao Shu is not a human. He is a spirit beast, so it's normal for him to speak now. Mommy, hug me. The sapling's voice was soft, just like a glutinous rice cake. It was fragrant and sweet, so cute that people couldn't help but take a bite. Yun Luofeng opened his arms and hugged Xiao Shu. Little Mo, it's been hard on you. Let me take care of him from now on. Hearing this, little Mo was moved to tears. His hard work did not go to waste. His master began to feel sorry for him. The little tree smiled happily in Yun Luofeng's arms. Ever since he was born, Yun Luofeng had been busy running around and had never hugged him. Master! Fire jumped down from the beam, his childish face revealing a smile. I'm really looking forward to the day you and Lord Yun shall give birth to a child. She propped up her cheeks with her hand, her eyes glowing brightly. Your child must be a genius among geniuses. Yun Luofeng's hand, which was gently caressing the small tree, paused for a moment. This kind of thing, let nature take its course. Fire, little Mo. You two go back to the Divine Grimoire space to rest. We might have to leave tomorrow, and there will be a tough battle to fight. Chapter 1205. The next day dawned. The morning light was bright and the streets were already filled with noise. The handsome man who had tried to strike up a conversation with Yun Luofeng yesterday had a flash of light in his eyes when he saw the beautiful young woman walking out of the inn. However, the young woman was carrying a few months-old baby in her arms and a 6 or 7-year-old little girl in her hand. Under everyone's gaze, she slowly walked over. When he saw the chubby baby in the young woman's arms, the man's heart sank. Could it be that this beautiful woman was already married? Miss, these two children are. In the end, the man still walked up and asked. Yun Luofeng looked at the man. My little sister and my son. Son? The man was dumbfounded as if he was struck by lightning. He had been interested in Yun Luofeng yesterday, and had wanted to pursue her. But now reality had ruthlessly slapped him in the face. This young woman had actually told him that she had a son? The man's heart was cold. He felt a gust of cold wind blow in, so cold that he shivered. Since yesterday, Yun Luofeng had sensed that the man had deliberately tried to strike up a conversation with her. That was why she had deliberately claimed that Xiao Shu was her son. But she hadn't expected that this sentence would hurt little Mo. Master, you're unfair. Why did you never acknowledge my identity when I pretended to be your son? Would you have acknowledged it if it was Xiao Shu? Little Mo wanted to cry. The more he thought about it, the sadder he felt. He couldn't help but regret persuading Yun Luofeng to accept Xiao Shu. Now Xiao Shu had already taken away Yun Luofeng's love. How could he not be sad? Hearing little Mo's aggrieved voice, Yun Luofeng lowered her eyes slightly. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Because I can't give birth to a son as old as you. Little Mo silently waited. He silently shrank in a corner and drew circles. Humph! The old man snorted and turned his head away. He didn't even look at Yun Luofeng. He was clearly disdainful of her bringing her son and little sister to fight against the Ghost Emperor. Ahem! The man coughed dryly. His handsome face once again recovered its handsome smile. I didn't introduce myself yesterday. My name is Duanichen. I haven't asked for your name yet. Yun Luofeng's lips curved slightly. Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng? That's not a bad name, Yunjian Luofeng. Haha. The man laughed heartily. He walked to Yunjian Luofeng's side and said softly, That's right, this old man is an elder of the Boundless sect, one of the forces that pursued the Ghost Emperor. That's why he was so angry because of what you said yesterday. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and looked at the elder. So that's how it is. Miss Yun, don't offend this old man. He's very strong. If you offend him, I'm afraid you'll have a hard time in the days to come. I know what to do. A cold light flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes. In order to snatch the heavenly spirit mirror, these people had chased after Yun Xiao for thousands of miles. Just based on this point, she would not let them off. However, when her words fell into Duanichen's ears, he thought that Yun Luofeng listened to his persuasion, and unconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Don't try to show off in front of these people. Otherwise, these shameless old things will definitely find trouble with you. Perhaps Duanichen was afraid that the people from the Boundless sect would hear what he said, so he deliberately lowered his voice. Yun Luofeng turned to Duanichen and asked, You also came here to encircle the Ghost Emperor? Chapter 1206. Duanichen chuckled and scratched the back of his head. I said yesterday that I came to join in on the fun. I don't care what they want to do. I only want to go to Phoenix Mountain to raise my strength. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng did not say anything else. Her fingers lightly stroked Little Tree's hair, and the murderous intent in her darkened eyes intensified. Let's go. The old man from the Boundless sect swept his eyes over everyone present and overbearingly said, This time we will head to Phoenix Mountain and must kill the Ghost Emperor. We will avenge the innocent souls of the Boundless sect. Revenge, avenge the Boundless sect. Eradicate the scourge, the Ghost Emperor. Everyone raised the weapons in their hands, their loud voices echoing through the streets of the small town. Did they really come to find Yun Xiao to avenge the Boundless sect? Most likely, they were only here for the Void Mirror. Duanichen. Yun Luofeng seemed to recall something and turned to him. What is the Void Mirror you spoke of? You don't know about the Void Mirror? Duan Chen was somewhat astonished. The Void Mirror is rumored to be a treasure once owned by the strong Ling Tian. It is said that one can obtain all of Ling Tian's inheritance inside the Void Mirror. It also allows one's strength to undergo a qualitative change. Inheritance? Yun Luofeng grew silent. She pondered for a long time but did not know how to use the Void Mirror. The crowd was already heading toward Phoenix Mountain in a grandiose manner. Phoenix Mountain was not much smaller than God Burial Mountain, so it would not be that easy to find Yun Xiao in such a large mountain. They spent the entire day on the road. Night fell. Everyone took out their tents and prepared to set up camp. Duan Chen looked at the unprepared Yun Luofeng and scratched the back of his head as he asked, "Miss Yun, I have extra tents here. Do you need them?" Yun Luofeng shook her head. "No need, I'll just spend the night under the tree." "All right." Seeing Yun Luofeng's refusal, Duan Chen did not say anything else. He glanced at the girl sitting on the tree and started setting up his tent in an open space. The flames of the bonfire were very bright, extremely bright against the girl's gorgeous face. Yun Luofeng handed Little Tree to Huahua and sat cross-legged under the tree. No one knew that at this moment, her soul had already entered the God Code space. "Master." Little Tree, who was squatting in the corner and drawing circles, saw Yun Luofeng and his eyes brightened. He hastily stood up. "Master, why are you here? Xiaomo, have you thought of how to use this Void Mirror?" Yun Luofeng lightly furrowed her brows. "Next, the enemies I need to face are too powerful. If I can form a contract with the Void Mirror now, I will have the ability to stand on their side." Xiaomo was silent. After a long time he looked up at Yun Luofeng and said, "We've tried dripping blood to recognize its master, but it didn't work, but..." He paused for a moment before continuing. "At that time you only used ordinary blood. Now you can try using blood essence. However, it will take a long time to replenish a single drop of blood essence. I was afraid that if you failed, it would waste your blood essence, so I didn't tell you. Treat it like a living horse. Now, I will not let go of any method that can increase my strength." Yun Luofeng slightly raised her eyes, her gaze solemn. Chapter 1207. She opened her hand, and a bronze mirror suddenly appeared in her hand. Then she closed her eyes and pointed her finger at the celestial spirit mirror. Spiritual energy surged out of her body and gathered on her finger. A drop of bright red blood was gradually forced out of the gap between her fingers by the surging spiritual energy. With a plop, it fell into the celestial spirit mirror whoosh. In an instant the white light intensified. The dazzling light enveloped the entire space of the divine grimoire, and also blinded Yun Luofeng's eyes. Within the white light, she could faintly see a man walking towards her. The man's entire body was shrouded in white mist, so that his face could not be seen clearly. Only a cold and unique voice rang out within the white light. "Do you see the wind around you?" Within the white space, countless swift and fierce winds rushed about chaotically and blew against her body. Her skin immediately split open, a bright red wound and fresh blood flowed out. "Defeat it. If you defeat it, you can leave this place. If you can't, then you will be controlled here for the rest of your life." Yun Luofeng's expression suddenly changed greatly. "Senior Ling Tian, I still have matters to attend to and must leave this place. Can you wait until I'm done before defeating the wind here?" What answered her was silence. The white-robed man had already disappeared long ago. Only the surrounding wind brushed against her face and brought about a wave of pain. Seeing another gust of wind coming towards her, Yun Luofeng leaned to the side and narrowly dodged it. She hurriedly took out her long sword and fought against the wind in front of her with an anxious expression. However, the more anxious she was, the more mistakes she made. In a short while her body was already riddled with wounds. Her snow-white dress was stained with fresh blood, turning it a bloody red. Even Yun Luofeng did not know how much time had passed. The surrounding wind became more and more violent and there was no end to it. As time passed, Yun Luofeng became even more anxious. She only wanted to defeat the wind as quickly as possible. "No, I can't continue like this. Yun Xiao is still waiting for me outside. I need to calm myself down and find the weakness of the wind." Yun Luofeng took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes. Since the wind made her eyes blurry, she might as well use her ears to listen and determine their direction. The sound of the wind whistling was so clear that it made Yun Luofeng's mood even calmer. Finally, she sensed a faint breeze. As she was enveloped by the strong wind, she suddenly opened her eyes and slashed out a sword light in that direction. Poochie! The sword light broke through the layers of obstacles and hit the target. At this moment, all the wind in the surroundings dissipated and the entire space became quiet. The sword in Yun Luofeng's hand was pressed tightly against the ground. Sweat and blood mixed together, making her look rather wretched. Is that enough? Can you let me out now? Yun Luofeng asked as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. The previous test was to let you understand the importance of calming your mind during battle. The white-robed man appeared in front of Yun Luofeng once again. His slender finger pointed behind Yun Luofeng. There are thousands of soldiers there. Defeat them. Yun Luofeng's expression changed. I said I want to go out. What answered her was still silence. Yun Luofeng could only resign himself to his fate and turn around to fight with the army. Even in this celestial spirit mirror, there were still changes between day and night. As she watched the constantly changing days and nights, Yun Luofeng's heart had already calmed down from its initial anxiousness. Chapter 1208. She could feel the passage of time. She also knew that she had been in the celestial spirit mirror for a month. Her top priority now was to quickly complete the task that the white-robed man had given her. Only then would she be able to leave and see Yun Xiao. Hence, there was nothing else on her mind at this moment. All she could think about was completing the task with all her might. However, the white-robed man seemed to have a bone to pick with her. After dealing with the army, he had given her one task after another. No matter how Yun Luofeng questioned him, the white-robed man did not say a word. Time had passed. Just as Yun Luofeng was so tired that she almost fell to the ground, the man's white robes appeared before her once again. You've completed the last task. From now on, this celestial spirit mirror belongs to you. The man slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng's side and gently tapped the young girl's forehead with his finger. As a reward for completing the task, I have a gift for you. In an instant, a powerful energy surged into Yun Luofeng's mind. Her head felt as if it was about to explode and it was filled to the brim. This is my lifetime's worth of cultivation and battle experience. Now I'm giving it all to you. I hope that you will become a legend of the new generation. Yun Luofeng's entire body trembled as she felt countless pieces of knowledge flowing through her mind. At the same time, the spiritual energy in her body churned continuously, absorbing all the spiritual energy from the outside world into her body. Boom! The burst of spiritual energy gave her a brand new feeling of comfort. However, this spiritual energy did not disappear after her breakthrough and continued to enter her body. A mid-stage Holy Spirit cultivator, a high-level Holy Spirit cultivator. The surging energy only stopped when she reached the high-level Holy Spirit cultivator. Yun Luofeng knelt down in the direction of the white-robed man and kowtowed a few times. She then rose to her feet and quickly headed towards the outside world. This white-robed man had imparted his lifetime's worth of experience to her, so he could be considered as her master. It was only right for her to kowtow to her master. Remember, this celestial spirit mirror can protect your life when you're in danger. You must never hand it over to anyone. You must remember this, you must remember this. The man's voice seemed to pierce through the clouds and echoed from a faraway place, causing Yun Luofeng to quicken her pace. Feng Huang Mountain. Yun Luofeng slowly opened his eyes and saw a familiar face. Duan Chen was delighted and hurriedly said, Miss Yun, you're awake? Hearing this, Yun Luofeng hurriedly stood up and said anxiously, Where are the others? I've been asleep for 3 months. Could it be that they've already? 3 months. Duan Chen looked at Yun Luofeng strangely. If you can sleep for 3 months, I'll admire you. However, your sleep was really long. You slept for 3 days straight. 3 days? Yun Luofeng paused. She clearly remembered that she stayed in the celestial spirit mirror for 3 months. Why did Duan Chen say it was only 3 days? Fire, on the other hand, was not anxious at all. She, who had once felt pity for Yun Luofeng, naturally knew that within these 3 days, Yun Luofeng would not be in any danger. Not good. Yun Luofeng's expression changed. They should be surrounding the Ghost Emperor by now. Duan Chen, take me to them immediately. Yun Xiao, wait for me. No matter what, this time, I will fight shoulder to shoulder with you. All right. Duanichin nodded. Let's go. Chapter 1209. At the peak of Fenghuang Mountain. The man stood with his hands behind his back and his black robes fluttered in the wind. He sensed the footsteps behind him but did not turn around. His silver mask reflected a dazzling light under the sunlight. Ghost Emperor, we've finally found you. The elder from the Boundless sect panted as he stepped forward and glared angrily at the man. He gritted his teeth and said, "Keep running if you can. You've killed so many people from the Boundless sect and even destroyed the entire Limitless sect. It's time for me to settle this score with you." The man slowly turned around and stared coldly at the crowd in front of him with his deep, black eyes. At this moment his aura surged out. It was cold and murderous. He was so powerful that he was like a king who had descended upon the world, looking down on all living beings. Scram! His thin lips parted and his hoarse and deep voice reverberated in everyone's hearts. This man had always been this powerful and cold. He had never placed anyone in his eyes. Yet it was this man who made everyone gnash their teeth in hatred and want nothing more than to kill him. Ghost Emperor, hand over the celestial spirit mirror and I'll spare your life. The elder from the Boundless sect's eyes darkened as he said eerily. The man's cold gaze slowly landed on the elder from the Boundless sect. For some reason, the elder felt his heart tremble the moment he met the man's black eyes. It was as if a hand was strangling his neck fiercely, making it extremely difficult for him to breathe. Let's attack together and kill the Ghost Emperor. The elder from the Boundless sect waved his hand and said with a gloomy look in his eyes, "No matter how powerful he is, he's only one person. There are so many of us, why should we be afraid of him?" 2 fists were no match for 4 legs. No matter how powerful the Ghost Emperor was, he could not possibly be a match for so many of them. Whoosh! After the immeasurable sect elder had spoken, the experts behind him all surged towards Yun Xiao and surrounded him in the middle. However, no one dared to act rashly. They were afraid of the man's cold and murderous aura and did not dare to take the lead. They were afraid that they would be reduced to nothing by the man's murderous aura. In the past, if they had heard someone say that a truly powerful cultivator could kill people with murderous aura alone, they would have laughed out loud. But now, from the Ghost Emperor's body, they felt a killing intent that was enough to take a life. This man was so powerful that just by standing beside him, one would feel a sense of oppression, and even breathing would become difficult. The wind howled as the man's black robe fluttered in the wind. The mask on his face reflected a cold light, and his aura was cold. His black eyes were like a deep pool, so deep that it made one's hair stand on end. Seeing that no one dared to act rashly, the old man from the immeasurable sect gritted his teeth and charged towards Yun Luofeng. In an instant, a rainbow-like aura erupted and blasted towards Yun Xiao with an unbreakable aura. Bang! Yun Xiao gently raised his hand and grabbed the old man's fist tightly. A powerful wind wave spread out from the two of them and raised a cloud of dust which flew in the wind. The old man tried to withdraw his fist with all his might, but he found that his fist seemed to be deeply immobilized. No matter how much strength he exerted, his fist did not move an inch. He was greatly shocked and quickly raised his head to look at the man standing in front of him. He could not help but take a deep breath. Yun Xiao, I never thought that your power would increase again in such a short period of time. But so what? It's not just the Boundless sect who have come today. There are other powerful cultivators from the West Continent as well. You're destined to not escape this calamity, huh? Chapter 12:10. He laughed maniacally. His maniacal laughter echoed throughout the entire mountain peak. Boom! The man's power penetrated his body and he was sent flying. The spiritual energy in his chest surged wildly, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Go kill him. The other cultivators looked at each other. Perhaps the Boundless sect's elders' actions had given them courage. They all attacked Yun Xiao in an instant. Facing the whirlwind of attacks, Yun Xiao's aura did not change. His deep, abyss-like eyes became even colder. It was so cold that it made one's heart instantly fall into the deepest depths of hell. Fresh blood spread from the foot of the mountain peak. Even the sunset glow on the horizon was like fresh blood, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. The man's black robe had long been dyed red with fresh blood. The light on his mask became even colder. This time there were tens of thousands of people who had come on this expedition. Other than the Boundless sect and the other major forces, There were also people who claimed to be righteous. They only had one goal, and that was to kill the Ghost Emperor. In the West Continent, the relationship between the major forces was very complicated. All kinds of open and secret struggles were normal. However, no matter how they fought internally, they were united against external enemies. The Ghost Emperor had not offended them, but he had destroyed the Limitless sect. He had destroyed the powerful Limitless sect just like that. This man was too terrifying. In order to prevent their own forces from being massacred by this man in the future, they could only join forces and kill him. The more the man killed, the colder he became. In this world, only Yun Luofeng could move him. The others were divided into 3 types. The first type were people Yun Luofeng loved. The second type were strangers. And the third type were these enemies in front of him. Why should he be merciful to his enemies? He would kill those who should be killed and destroy those who should be destroyed. He would never be merciful. We can't go on like this. The Boundless Sect elder wiped the blood and sweat from his forehead. A cold light flashed in his eyes. We don't have enough people. With the Ghost Emperor's power, we will all die in his hands sooner or later. So Lady Zillion, please. A purple-clothed woman slowly walked out from that group of people. This woman could be considered beautiful, provided that there were no scars on her face. TSK, although I can't see the Ghost Emperor's face, but his figure is not bad. It would be a pity to kill him. The woman in purple licked her lips and narrowed her eyes with greed. Do we really have to kill him? It would be great if he could become my pet boy to warm my bed. The corners of the Boundless Sect's old man's mouth twitched violently. Although Violet Lotus looked like a young woman in her 20s, in reality, she was already over 50 years old. However, the cultivation method she practiced was rather special, which was why she could maintain such a youthful appearance. It was also because of her special cultivation method that she needed to harvest yang to nourish her yin. Any man that she fancied would not be able to escape her clutches. The purple-robed woman's fingers gently stroked her lips as the desire in her eyes grew stronger and stronger. Compared to looks, she preferred a man with a perfect body. Based on this man's figure, his skills in bed must be pretty good. It would be a pity to kill him. She had yet to properly enjoy this man's power. Lady Zillion, said the Boundless Sect elder helplessly, the Ghost Emperor is not someone who can be easily controlled. If you want to obtain him, you will definitely suffer the consequences of your own actions. Hence, we can only ask you to help us kill him. Chapter 12:11. Zillion smiled delicately. I'm just joking. I don't know what's more important. Even if it's a pity, I'll still kill him. With Zillion's assurance, the elder from the Boundless Sect smiled. The reason why they dared to seek revenge on the Ghost Emperor on Fenghuang Mountain was because of Zillion's trump card. Zillion was no match for the Ghost Emperor in terms of strength. Unfortunately, Zillion's true strength did not lie in her own strength. Suddenly Zillion flipped her palm and a jade flute appeared in her palm. The jade flute glowed like a piece of jade. It was so beautiful that no one could look away. A beast-taming flute? The crowd was shocked when they saw the jade flute. The elder from the Boundless Sect called her Lady Zillion. Could she be the sect leader of the beast-taming sect, Qin Zillion? If Zillion called herself the second-best beast-taming expert in the world, then no one would dare to call themselves the first. In the 7 continents, no one would be a match for Zillion. The beast-taming sect? The beast-taming sect from the central continent? Oh my god. The elder from the Boundless Sect actually invited a strong cultivator from the central continent. The crowd, who had been filled with despair, was filled with joy when they saw Zillion. As long as Zillion made her move, there was no doubt about this battle. Just as everyone was discussing, Zillion had already placed the jade flute to her lips. A beautiful melody flowed from her lips and slowly flowed through the silent mountain peak. The cries of hundreds of beasts. At this moment, all the spiritual beasts on Fenghuang Mountain roared, as if in response to Zillion's call. In the western continent, Fenghuang Mountain was the most dangerous place after Hidden God Mountain. Of course, compared to the crazy spiritual beasts on God-Burying Mountain, the spiritual beasts on Fenghuang Mountain rarely attacked humans. Unless humans provoked them first, or robbed them of the medicinal herbs they were guarding. However, now that they heard Zillion's call, the spiritual beasts rushed over. Countless birds circled in the sky and let out crisp cries. Perhaps all the spiritual beasts on Feng Huang Mountain were rushing over. At the foot of the mountain, the sound of galloping could be heard from behind. It came from afar and quickly arrived behind Yun Luofeng and the others. The moment Duanichen turned around, he saw this shocking scene. He hurriedly said, "Miss Yun, be careful." Yun Luofeng frowned slightly. Before she could understand what was happening, the spiritual beasts had already passed by them and were quickly making their way towards the top of the mountain. "You scared me to death." Duanichen wiped the sweat off his forehead and exhaled softly. "I thought that the spiritual beasts on Feng Huang Mountain had gone mad." In an instant, Yun Luofeng seemed to have realized something. Her beautiful face suddenly darkened. Not good. After saying that, she turned into a ray of light and dashed forward in the blink of an eye. "Master, wait for me." In his anxiety, Fire shouted out these two words without hesitation. At the same time, her figure also turned into a beam of light and quickly disappeared. "Master?" Duanichen was stunned. Isn't this little girl Miss Yen's younger sister? Why was he calling her master? Also, this little girl seems to be only about 6 years old. She's so fast that even I can't catch up. After thinking for a long time, Duanichen still could not understand this logic. Afraid that something would happen to Yun Luofeng, he hurriedly chased after the two of them. The mountain peak towered into the clouds and white mist swirled about. Chapter 12:12. Countless spiritual beasts kicked up a cloud of dust as their horses galloped. The eyes of the spiritual beasts were filled with savagery as they charged towards Yun Xiao under Zelia's command. At that moment, the entire mountain peak was filled with all sorts of birds, beasts, and powerful human cultivators. Below them was a group of spiritual beasts that were running non-stop. From afar it was a spectacular sight. It just so happened that the only person standing opposite of these people was a callous man. He was facing so many enemies on his own, yet he showed no fear. Yun Xiao. However, at that moment, a familiar voice rang out in front of him, causing the man's body to stiffen. His gaze, which had landed on the group of spiritual beasts, slowly shifted away. His eyes, which were as deep as a serene lake, stared at the woman in white who was rushing towards him from the foot of the mountain. His gaze, which was like a 10,000-year-old iceberg, melted the moment he saw the young girl. Within his deep and serene black eyes, only the young girl's silhouette could be seen clearly. It grew larger and larger, closer and closer. One glance was enough to last a lifetime. At that moment, the man forgot about the clamor around him and the spiritual beasts charging towards him. In his entire world, there was only her left. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng's peerlessly beautiful face changed when he saw the spiritual beasts charging towards Yun Xiao. His voice carried a sense of urgency. Fortunately, Yun Xiao returned to her senses at the last moment. With a loud crash, the spiritual beast at the very front collapsed under Yun Xiao's power. It bled from its 7 orifices and its bones were shattered. At this moment, Yun Luofeng had already made his way through the group of spiritual beasts and reached Yun Xiao's side. When the two of them looked at each other, they only had eyes for each other. "You've come." The man gently opened his mouth and his hoarse voice rang out in the noisy battlefield. "Yes, I've come." After being separated for so many months, she had finally come. "I've come to follow in your footsteps and become a woman who can fight by your side. I've been waiting for you." He had been waiting for her to come to this mainland. However, he never thought that she would arrive so quickly. It had exceeded his expectations. Seeing that the other spiritual beasts were about to pounce on her, Yun Xiao waved his hand once again and several beams of energy shot out at the same time. Before the spiritual beasts could dodge, they collapsed into a pool of blood. "Great, so you really are in cahoots with the Ghost Emperor." The instant the boundless sex old man saw Yun Luofeng, he understood something and flew into a great rage as he said, "No wonder you would speak up for him. Turns out that the two of you are actually a pair of adulterous dogs." Yun Xiao's brows furrowed as he stared coldly at the immeasurable sect elder. His aura spread out, covering the sky and earth. Yun Luofeng raised the corners of her lips as she stood next to Yun Xiao. An evil smile hung on her face as her eyes, which were as calm as an ancient well, turned towards the boundless sect elder. "That's right, the Ghost Emperor is my man. Since I'm here today, I want to see who dares to touch my man." His white robe fluttered in the strong wind. The young girl raised her eyebrows. Her domineering voice reverberated throughout the entire mountain peak. At this moment, fire had already rushed to Yun Luofeng's side. She was still hugging the small tree in her hands, and her eyes were filled with anger as she coldly stared at the crowd in front of her. Zilian had already stopped playing her flute. Because of this, the spiritual beasts that were attacking Yun Xiao stopped as they looked at each other in confusion. They didn't know why they were in this place. Yun Xiao stood quietly beside Yun Luofeng. Although he didn't need her protection with his strength, but he just liked to see her domineering appearance when she stood up for him. Chapter 12-13. She couldn't get enough of this look. Rumor has it that the Ghost Emperor is cruel and merciless, bloody and murderous. I've always wanted to know what kind of person the woman who could subdue the Ghost Emperor is. Zelia narrowed her eyes, a smile on her lips. Yun Luofeng smiled evilly. "Now that you've seen it, how do you feel?" "That's all." Zelia's smile was filled with disdain, as if she didn't care about Yun Luofeng at all. He was just a holy spirit. To an ordinary person, a holy spirit was powerful enough. But in front of her, it was nothing. "You old witch, what nonsense are you spouting?" Fire glared at Zelia angrily. "You're just an old witch in her 60s or 70s. How dare you look down on my master?" Zelia's eyes turned cold. This little girl could tell her age? What made her even angrier was that she had insulted her as an old witch. However, after seeing Yun Luofeng at the side, Zelia suppressed her anger. The smile on her face didn't weaken at all. "Tsk, little girl, I'm afraid your body won't be able to withstand the torment of the Ghost Emperor. How about I take your place?" Yun Luofeng narrowed her eyes. If she still couldn't feel Zelia's longing for Yun Xiao, then she would have lived 2 lives in vain. "Leave it to me." Yun Xiao lowered her eyes and whispered into Yun Luofeng's ear. "Yun Xiao, I've come here to fight alongside you, not to rely on your protection." Yun Luofeng turned to the man beside him. "So I'll leave the humans to you, the spiritual beasts. I'll deal with them." Yun Xiao did not hesitate and nodded. All right. He believed in Yun Luofeng. Since she had made such a request, then she would definitely do it. "Humph." Zelia scoffed coldly, the smile on her lips curling into a mocking arc, clearly not taking Yun Luofeng seriously at all. The tune she played was not as beautiful as before. Instead, it became extremely sharp, like a sharp sword piercing through the intestines, killing without leaving a trace. Roar! Countless birds and beasts seemed to have gone mad, their eyes turning blood-red as they charged towards Yun Luofeng. In an instant, dust flew and covered the entire mountain peak. Yun Xiao quickly finished them off. "I can stop these spiritual beasts." Yun Luofeng's eyes darkened as he spoke. "All right." Yun Xiao glanced at Yun Luofeng, then turned his cold eyes towards the crowd in the sky. His robes fluttered in the wind, giving off an austere aura. Quick, protect Miss Zelian." The expression of the old man from the Boundless sect changed drastically as he hurriedly instructed. In an instant, everyone surrounded Violet Lotus, protecting her in the middle so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Yun Zhao's aura was too terrifying and his cold eyes were filled with killing intent. Just meeting his gaze would make one tremble in fear. "Go." An expert gritted his teeth and took the lead to charge towards Yun Xiao. At the same time, the others also launched their attacks. Killing sounds could be heard from the blood-stained mountain peak once again. Countless spirit beasts swarmed towards Yun Luofeng with their sharp claws and fangs. Anyone could foresee that under the onslaught of so many ferocious spiritual beasts, Yun Luofeng would not even have a corpse left. "Ghost Emperor." Zelia gently narrowed her eyes and her smile was ambiguous. A jade flute spun around her fingertips, causing her to pause for a moment. Her tongue licked her lips, displaying her full charm. "I really can't help but admire your foresight. You found such a weak woman. She will soon die under the claws and fangs of the spiritual beasts, and your fate will be just as miserable. Of course, if you're willing to be my man, perhaps I can spare your life." Chapter 12-14. Lady Zilian. The old man's expression changed as he said, "You can't be serious, right?" Zilian didn't even look at the old man. Her smile was seductive as she looked straight at Yun Xiao. "How is it? Isn't this condition very beneficial to you? No matter what, with my beauty you won't lose out. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to see what kind of person the Ghost Emperor was, I would have rejected the boundless sex invitation. You should feel honored. Shameless. Fire sneered as he looked at Zillian. His soft voice carried a hint of disdain. You think you can be considered beautiful? Even one of my master's toes is better than yours. Indeed, even though this violet lotus was beautiful, she had a scar on her face. This scar destroyed her beauty. However, what Zillian hated the most in her life was people insulting her for being ugly. You're courting death. Her eyes turned cold as she once again placed the jade flute to her lips. The slowed-down spiritual beasts once again sped up and quickly arrived in front of Yun Luofeng and Fire. At this moment, no one saw that the fat baby in Fire's arms was not crying because of the spiritual beasts. Instead, he started giggling. His fair and tender little arms waved in the air, and a bright smile appeared on that young and tender little face. The fat baby's smile was as if he had obtained a new toy. He was very happy. Xiao Shu, you stay here. I want to fight side by side with Master. Fire threw the small tree on the ground and walked in front of Yun Luofeng. She raised her chin and looked down at the spiritual beasts that were rushing towards her. Do you think a bunch of small animals like you can hurt my master? Now, I will show you who is the true king of spiritual beasts. Hua! Flames ignited from Fire's body, and countless flames covered the entire sky, making the mountain peak look completely red. 8 tails appeared behind her. These 8 tails represented the source of her power. Thus, people could feel the surging power in her body. It was so strong that it was unparalleled. Among spiritual beasts with high bloodlines could suppress ordinary spiritual beasts. Even though the spirit beasts were under Violet Lotus's control, they were still stunned, and fear could be seen in their eyes. Unfortunately, Violet Lotus immediately controlled their consciousness and ordered them to rush towards Yun Luofeng. Just as Duan Yichen ran towards the mountain peak, he saw Fire, who was enveloped in flames, especially the 8 fiery red tails behind Fire, which were clearly reflected in his eyes, scaring him so much that he almost fainted on the spot. During this period of time, the little girl who had been with him day and night was actually a spirit beast? What could be more shocking than this? Fortunately, he did not do anything to anger Yun Luofeng and Fire. Otherwise, who knew if this spiritual beast would flip out on the spot and kill him? The more Duan Yichen thought about it, the more relieved he felt. But even so, he could not calm the shock in his heart. On the battlefield, the girl's white clothes were stained with blood, and her fine black hair fluttered in the wind. She held a long sword in her hand, and her evil eyes were filled with killing intent. Blood splashed out from the body of the spiritual beast and splashed onto her face. However, she seemed to have made up her mind and continued to charge forward. Zillian's face darkened. In her eyes, Yun Luofeng should have been buried in the horde of spiritual beasts in the next second. She didn't know that she could actually use her left arm to carve out a path of blood for herself. No, if this goes on, we won't be a match for them either. We have to get rid of these people as soon as possible. Chapter 12:15. Zillian looked at the jade flute that was getting closer and closer to her, and a look of anxiety finally flashed across her eyes. Suddenly, her gaze landed on the small tree that Fire had thrown onto the ground, and a hint of joy flashed across her eyes. At this moment, Zillian had never thought about why Fire would be at ease and throw the small tree on the ground. She had never thought that the small tree, who was clearly a child, would not only not cry or make a fuss in the face of such a scene, but would instead be giggling non-stop. It was precisely because she did not think much that she did something that she regretted bitterly. Zillian once again played the jade flute. This time, the direction of the jade flute was no longer pointed at Yun Luofeng. Her sharp gaze swept across the small tree that was crawling on the ground, and the corners of her lips curled into a cruel smile. Miss Yun, be careful of your child. Duan Yichen shouted loudly, his eyes flashing with anxiety. He had arrived late and did not know what had happened. He only knew that Yun Luofeng had started fighting with these people. But these people did not even want to let her child go. Yun Luofeng did not seem to hear Duan Yichen's words. He continued to deal with the enemy in front of him, completely unworried about the safety of the small tree. Cluck, cluck, cluck. The small tree waved its white and tender arms, giggling as it waved at the spirit beasts that were pouncing towards it. Its cute little face was brimming with a bright smile. Roar! A male lion pounced in front of the small tree, opened its bloody mouth wide, and bit down on the small tree's fleshy arm. It's over. Duanichen hurriedly covered his eyes. He could not bear to see the tragic scene of the small tree being bitten to death by the spirit beasts. But in the end, he could not help but open a crack. The expected scene did not appear. The small tree was not torn apart by the spirit beasts, but it suddenly disappeared. When he was looking for the small tree in surprise, he suddenly realized that the little fellow that had been crawling on the ground just now had unknowingly sat on the head of the lion. Because the lion's fur was too exuberant, it covered the small tree's body, so he did not notice it at first. It was only when a fleshy arm stretched out from the thick fur that he discovered the existence of the small tree. In the entire mountain, other than the roars of the spirit beasts, there were no other sounds of humans. Zillion was stunned. She stared at the small tree with her mouth agape. She fiercely rubbed her eyes, not daring to believe what she was seeing. How is this possible? He's just a kid. Zillia's face was pale, and even her voice was trembling. Everything in front of her was beyond her imagination. She had lived for decades, but she had never seen such a supernatural scene. The image of the sapling riding on the lion's back fell into everyone's eyes. It was as if they saw a mouse standing on a cat's paw. Kakik! The little tree's crisp laughter was so obvious and deafening amidst the roars of the spirit beasts. Roar! The male lion flew into a rage and violently swung the small tree's body, trying to shake it off its head. Xiao Shu's laughter disappeared. His eyebrows were tightly knitted, and his expression did not look too good. He was angry. Once the sapling grew, the consequences would be dire. He staggered up from the lion's head and angrily slapped the lion's head with his little hand. As the lion's fur was too thick, he could not feel the little palm of the little tree, but the others were shocked by the sapling's behavior. Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. A little boy who had not even grown all his teeth dared to ride on the lion's back and even hit it? Chapter 12:16. Zillion came back to her senses and played the jade flute once again. Thus, the spiritual beasts that had been frozen in place all began to attack the small tree. The small tree was so angry that its little face turned green. It raised its fleshy arm and stretched its palm towards the sky. With a loud bang, countless vines drilled out from the ground. In an instant, they had bound the legs of the spiritual beasts and hung them in the air. This was not the end. How could hanging them up quell the anger in the small tree's heart? Thus, he once again made the vine stretch out, turning it into a long whip and ruthlessly lashed the bodies of the spiritual beasts. Silence. The entire world had returned to peace at this moment. Zillion's hand loosened in fright and the jade flute fell to the ground. Her beautiful face was deathly pale as she stared in horror at the arrogant small tree. Hee. Fire sneered and said with his hands on his hips, I really don't know where you got the courage to attack the small tree. Since I dared to throw the small tree on the ground, you should have guessed that it is not something you can afford to offend. Zillion bit her lips, her pale face was filled with despair. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. The other party was just a child. How could he defeat so many spiritual beasts in an instant? She did not believe it. She did not believe that anyone in this world would be born with this kind of ability. At this moment, the man in the black robe had already dealt with the people in front of him and appeared in front of her with a murderous aura. Zillion swallowed with difficulty. Her gaze gradually moved up, and when she saw the man's cold mask, cold sweat trickled down from her forehead. Ghost Emperor. Boom! The man's power was filled with killing intent and landed heavily on her chest. At this moment, she felt the sound of her dantian shattering, and the spiritual power in her body also flowed out. You lack men. The man's eyes were cold and his voice was cold and merciless. The brothel lacks you. You lack men, the brothel lacks you. This man would never waste a word with insignificant people. In one sentence, he had clearly stated his intentions. Don't you lack men? There are many men who visit the brothel. That place is very suitable for you. Fear flashed across Zillion's eyes and she hurriedly crawled up from the ground. She knelt in front of Yun Xiao and said with a pale face, Ghost Emperor, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I won't dare to join forces with others to deal with you in the future. Please let me go this time. I promise I'll do anything to repay you. At a time like this, how could she still dare to show off? If he wanted to protect himself, he could only desperately apologize. Bang! Just as Zillion was about to kneel towards the man waved his sleeve and sent her flying. Violet Lotus spat out a mouthful of blood, her complexion becoming increasingly pale. She regretted it. He regretted dealing with Yun Xiao. This man was not someone they could deal with at all. Lord Yun Xiao, Fire winked at Yun Xiao, leave the people here to me. I guarantee that I will complete the mission with the small tree, and not leave a single one of them alive. You and Master can go to the world of two people. She was determined to be a spiritual beast that shared her master's worries. Now that her master and Yun Xiao had not seen each other for so long, they definitely needed to be alone. As for the aftermath, it was enough for her to do it. Yun Xiao walked towards Yun Luofeng. When he saw the small tree giggling at the side, he was unable to shift his gaze away. He is our son? Don't blame Yun Xiao for misunderstanding Yun Luofeng. Even though this small tree was only a few months old, he could still see his own shadow on him. Especially his eyebrows, they were extremely similar. Chapter 12:17. So, he concluded that Xiaoshu was his and Yun Luofeng's child. Yun Luofeng's expression darkened. How long have we been apart? Yun Xiao thought about it. More than half a year. How long does pregnancy take? 10 months. Yun Luofeng smiled. Then do you think he's our son? Yun Xiao was silent for a moment. Then who is he? What do you think? Yun Luofeng raised his brows. He looks so much like you. Then what do you think his identity is? Hearing this, Yun Xiao immediately became nervous. He stared at Yun Luofeng uneasily. I have nothing to do with him. All these years I've been by your side. Apart from you, I've never interacted with anyone else. And my first woman was also you. Fengwa, you have to believe me. I really have nothing to do with him. Duani Chen was just about to walk towards Yun Luofeng when he heard their conversation. His mouth twitched and he looked at Yun Xiao speechlessly. The rumored ghost emperor was naturally an idiot? Let's go. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes and pulled on Yun Xiao's clothes. I'll settle things with you when we get back. Fengwa, you really have to believe me. I don't know him. Yun Xiao was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. He was afraid that Yun Luofeng would misunderstand him. Yun Luofeng glanced at him. I adopted Xiaoshu. As for his identity, I'll tell you later. Right now, I want you to settle the score. You face so many dangers alone. Why didn't you tell me everything? Why didn't you let Qin Yuan tell me? Yun Xiao froze. His black eyes stared at Yun Luofeng. His voice was hoarse and low. I was afraid you'd be worried. So I want to settle things with you first. Yun Luofeng glared at him. Fine. If it can appease your anger, you can punish me however you want. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. A dangerous arc flashed across his eyes. Then let's settle things in bed now. Settle things in bed? Duani Chen was confused. This was the first time he saw someone settle things in bed. Miss Yun was indeed different from ordinary women. Domineering and shameless. From afar, he could vaguely hear the conversation between the two men. I'll go up, you go down. This was an evil voice, incomparably tyrannical. All right. The voice was filled with doting and indulgence. I'll make sure you can't get out of bed for 3 days and 3 nights. Don't worry. With my physique, even if it's 3 months, I can still get out of bed. Duani Chen almost fell to the ground. Miss Yun's domineering attitude was a little too much, right? He actually said that he would make the Ghost Emperor unable to get out of bed for 3 days. However, the Ghost Emperor was very tolerant and indulgent towards her. He could see that the man spoiled her to the bone and allowed her to do whatever she wanted. Duani Chen's heart ached. It was rare for him to fall in love with a woman at first sight. Unfortunately, this woman already had a husband. Her husband was so outstanding that no one could compare to him. Then what hope did he have? Duani Chen sighed. Right now, he could only give Yun Luofeng his most sincere blessings. Run! The experts who had come to encircle Yun Xiao turned around and fled when they saw the two of them leave. Fire's sharp eyes glanced at the movements of those people and scolded sternly. If you want to escape, you have to see if you have the ability to do so. Xiaoshu, these people want to kill your parents. How do you plan to punish them? Xiaoshu was not an ordinary human. He had evolved from a tree. Although he had only been born for a few months, his mind was already like that of a child. Chapter 12:18. Kill. Hearing Fire's words, Xiaoshu turned his head to look at the people who had turned around and left, and a soft voice came out from his mouth. Yes, those who bullied their parents deserved to die. Bang! Once again, countless vines rose from the ground. Without waiting for those people to escape, the vines had already bound their bodies, preventing them from moving. Xiaoshu beat them to death. Oh right, don't beat that woman blowing the flute to death. Your father said that he would sell her to a brothel. Doesn't she like to please men? Then let her do as she wishes. Fire placed his hands on his hips and gave the order. The fat baby raised his small hand, and countless vine whips appeared in front of those people. Then under their terrified gazes, the whips fiercely lashed out. Pa pa pa! Within the entire mountain peak, only the sound of the whip slicing through the air and the heart-wrenching roars of those people could be heard. Just you wait, there are many people who want to kill the Ghost Emperor. One day, he will die in the hands of a righteous man, ha ha ha. The old man from the Boundless sect laughed crazily. His eyes glowed with a blood-red light, and he had already fallen into a state of madness. The more he scolded, the faster the whip struck, until the old man from the Boundless sect was unable to say a single word. Oh, I almost forgot. Fire narrowed his eyes and shot a dangerous gaze towards Duan Yichen. You are also in cahoots with them, here to subdue Lord Yun Shao. Duan Yichen's forehead was drenched in sweat, and he laughed embarrassedly. I'm just here to join in the fun, it has nothing to do with me, you can continue. Fire stroked his chin and slightly raised his head. Seeing that your nature is not bad, I will spare you, but you are not allowed to speak of what happened today. All right, I promise I won't say anything. Duan Yichen hurriedly nodded and swore. No, Fire shook his head. I don't trust you. If you reveal my and the little tree's identity, Master and Lord Yun Shao will be hunted down by even more people, so take this pill. Duan Yichen was startled. Looking at the pill that Fire handed over to him, he frowned slightly. What is this? This pill will make you forget what happened in the past few days. Forget what happened in the past few days? That also meant he would forget Yun Luofeng? For some reason, when Duan Yichen heard this, his heart throbbed violently. He raised his hand, but he couldn't bring himself to take the pill. I promise not to tell anyone, is that really not okay? He raised his head, looked at Fire and said. Fire blinked his eyes. We have not known each other for long. I do not know your identity, nor do I know your character, how can I trust you? Duan Yichen laughed bitterly. He picked up the pill that Fire handed over and gently closed his eyes. Since that was the case, these few days of interaction were just a dream. Now that he had woken up from his dream, he should have forgotten about it. Duan Yichen closed his eyes and swallowed the pill. Suddenly, he felt his body convulse. His consciousness became blurry and he gradually fell to the ground. Looking at Duan Yichen's fallen body, Fire pursed his lips and asked, Xiaoshu, am I too cruel? The small tree tilted its head and blinked its big eyes curiously, as if it did not understand what Fire meant. Actually, Duan Yichen is not a bad person. Although he also came to encircle and annihilate Lord Yun Shao, he has taken good care of us along the way. During the 3 days that Master was unconscious, he also took good care of me. However, in my heart the most important thing is Master. As long as it is for Master, I can do anything cruel. Chapter 12:19. Fire's eyes gradually turned from hesitation to determination. I can't let anyone discover our identities, otherwise, it will bring danger to Master. So letting Duan Yichen lose his memories for the past few days is the best decision. What's more, this guy has ulterior motives towards Master. I don't want Master to have any more dealings with him. If he forgets Master, he will definitely not pester her. The small tree looked at Fire in confusion, its big watery eyes filled with doubt. Forget it, you're still young, you don't understand the matters of your parents. Fire lowered his head and gently caressed the head of the small tree. But I know the pain of losing a loved one, so I have to protect their safety even if I have to spend my entire life. I won't let them separate. The small tree raised its chubby arm and placed it on Fire's arm, as if it was comforting her. Fire laughed. Little tree, don't let master know about this matter, otherwise little Mo and I will be finished. If Xiao Mo hadn't secretly passed her the pill, she would have been dead. She couldn't make Duan Yichen lose his memories. Therefore, once Yun Luofeng found out, it would also affect little Mo. The small tree nodded sensibly and said in a childish voice, "All right. Kill all of these people. Don't waste any more time. After we kill them, we'll go find master." Fire raised his head. His eyes filled with flames as he looked at the shouting people, his body surging with killing intent. Poochie! As soon as she finished speaking, the vines turned into sharp thorns and pierced into the chests of those people. Blood seeped out from his chest and dyed his clothes red. With a wave of the small tree's hand, all the vines were retracted. The corpses of those people fell from the sky and piled up into a mountain. Although Fire had killed a lot of people in this life, and even the small tree was stained with blood for the first time, they were not bloodthirsty people. The spiritual beasts were all used, and killing people was not their intention. If not for Zilian's jade flute, they would not have been able to control themselves and attack Yun Luofeng. Therefore, after the small tree whipped them 100 times, it put them down. "You can leave now." Fire placed his hands on his hips and arrogantly raised his chin. "This matter is not your fault, so I will not kill you. That 100 lashes just now is your punishment. I hope that you will not encounter such a thing again in the future." Roar! All the beasts roared, looked at Fire gratefully, and quickly ran down the mountain. "Let's go." Fire bent down, picked up the small tree and walked down the mountain. Not long after they left, Duan Yichen opened his eyes in a daze. He rubbed his aching forehead and frowned. "What happened? Am I not here to join in the fun with those people who came to encircle the Ghost Emperor? Why am I here?" He had obviously not woken up yet, but when he saw the mountain of corpses, he was obviously shocked. These are the experts from the major forces? What exactly happened? How come I don't remember anything? His head ached and he staggered to his feet. "No, this place is not safe. I have to leave as soon as possible." Oh, it was night. The moonlight was like water. In the inn at the foot of Phoenix Mountain, 2 bodies were entangled on a large bed. Sweat flowed down their bodies. Yun Luofeng lay on the bed, his hand caressing the man's handsome face as he narrowed his eyes. "Yun Xiao, I've said it before, I'm up, you're down." Chapter 12:20. Yun Xiao lowered his head and gently kissed the young girl's lips. His magnetic voice was filled with affection. "I don't want you to be tired." Yun Luofeng gently closed her eyes. As Yun Xiao moved, she felt a wave of spirit energy continuously flowing through her body, converging into a stream. Even though she did not continue to break through, it made the spiritual energy in her body more stable. This is the benefit of dual cultivation? Yun Luofeng, who had enjoyed the benefits, had a faint smile on her lips. She hugged Yun Xiao with both arms and moved her body forward. 3 days and 3 nights. None of them left the room, as if they wanted to vent all their yearning for the past few days. Fire and the small tree also waited outside the room for the entire night. They wanted to return to the divine grimoire space, but they were too embarrassed to go in and disturb Yun Luofeng. Originally, Fire thought that the battle of 3 days and 3 nights would definitely cause Yun Xiao to collapse. However, when she saw Yun Xiao again, it was as if nothing had happened to this man. Not only did he not show any signs of weakness, he was even more energetic than before. Of course, Fire did not know that because of their physiques, when Yun Luofeng was enjoying the benefits, Yun Xiao was also sharing the benefits. It was just that he did not realize it himself. Even without the nourishment of spiritual energy, with Yun Xiao's current strength, even if he fought for another 300 rounds, he would not be weak. Otherwise, why would the women beside the strong be so nourished that their faces were flushed red? It was precisely because the stronger one's physique would be. Not to mention not getting out of bed for 3 days and 3 nights, even if it was another 3 days, nothing would happen. "Master, shouldn't we set off?" Fire looked at Yun Luofeng, who was being hugged by Yun Xiao, and the smile on his face carried a hint of ambiguity. "I know that the 2 of you have reunited after a long time, so you must be warm again. However, you have already stayed in bed for 3 days and 3 nights, so you should consider the feelings of us single people." Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and smiled lightly. Fire, you and the small tree go to the divine grimoire space and wait for me. After saying this, Yun Luofeng recalled them back to the divine grimoire space and turned to look at Yun Xiao. If you have anything you want to ask, you can ask it now. Just who is it? Yun Xiao pondered for a moment before asking. The person he was asking was naturally the small tree. I once nurtured a child from a seed I obtained in Yellow Spring City. Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips. Back then, not long after you left, he was already born. Because his initial appearance was based on my ideas, I made him look like you. Yun Xiao lowered his eyes and stared deeply at the young girl's beautiful face. His gaze was filled with endless yearning. Fenger, I'm honored that I was the first person you thought of when you helped him design his appearance. Yun Luofeng smiled. Yun Xiao, in this world, only you can make me worry so much. Ever since she had arrived on this mainland, Yun Xiao had always been by her side. He had even willingly concealed all his brilliance for her. How fortunate was she to be able to obtain his favor. Let's go. It's almost time for me to ask for leave. I should return to the Western Continent Academy. I'll go with you. Yun Xiao gently wrapped her arms around Yun Luofeng's waist. She lowered her eyes and smiled faintly. From now on, wherever you go, I will follow you. Wasn't there a saying that went, if you marry a chicken, follow the chicken, and if you marry a dog, follow the dog? He had chosen to become a member of the Yun family, so he would follow her wherever she went. Chapter 12:21. Yun Xiao, you mean? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, the smile on his lips filled with malice. You want to marry me? Yun Xiao's gaze was fixed on Yun Luofeng. You don't want to take responsibility? I will definitely take responsibility for you. Yun Luofeng stood on his tiptoes and kissed Yun Xiao's lips. After we've dealt with the enemies here, we'll go home and get married. Feeling the warmth on her lips, Yun Xiao raised his hand and hugged the young girl's body tightly. That action seemed to melt her into his bones and blood. Inseparable for life. After the kiss, Yun Luofeng's hand landed on Yun Xiao's chest and gently pushed him away. Yun Xiao, during the time I wasn't here, you've attracted a lot of peach blossoms, especially that girl in purple who played the flute. I won't have peach blossoms. Yun Xiao raised his eyes and stared fixedly at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng was stunned and raised his head to look at the handsome and cold man in front of him. The man's voice was filled with killing intent. Because I will break all the flowers. Peach blossoms? Just break them. He had never been someone who had tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. So what if he broke those peach blossoms? Then what about me? Yun Luofeng looked at the man with a smile that wasn't a smile and asked. The man's expression was only serious when he was facing her. You're not a flower. Then what am I? You are. Yun Xiao pulled Yun Luofeng's hand and pressed it tightly against his chest. You are this. Yun Luofeng's hand felt the man's beating heart in his chest, causing her heart to skip a beat. You are my heart. If you're not here, then my heart won't be here either. Yun Xiao stared at Yun Luofeng seriously and attentively. If someone else had said this, Yun Luofeng would definitely have thought of it as flowery words. But the person who said this was Yun Xiao. It was the Yun Xiao who never lied, nor did she know how to use flowery words. Every word he said came from the bottom of his heart and expressed his true feelings. How could she not believe this kind of man? Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng withdrew her hand. She touched her burning cheeks and turned her head to the other side. Let's go. All right. Yun Xiao's gaze continued to follow Yun Luofeng. Within his deep black eyes, that figure was exceptionally clear. West Continent College. In the classroom, the middle-aged man's cold gaze swept over the many students below. His expression was very ugly. Yun Luofeng hasn't arrived yet? The little lowly furrowed her brows. She opened her mouth to speak, but when Nziheo saw this, he hurriedly pulled on her sleeve. Miss, just bear with it. Wang Yiji is like the sun at high noon. He's not easy to deal with, little lowly said unhappily, but she offended Wang Mujing in order to save us. Her voice was very soft, so soft that it was almost inaudible. However, Nziheo's ears were sharp enough to hear the little lowly's murmur. That day, after Yun Luofeng left the academy, the few old men in the elders' assembly did not want Wang Mujing's uncle, Wang Yiji, to have any contact with Yun Luofeng. They had specially arranged for him to take care of other disciples, but they had not expected that Wang Yizhi would bribe the protector of the Elders' Assembly and transfer him to Yun Luofeng's academy. In addition, during this period of time, the elders had been busy with other matters, so no one had discovered this. However, when Wang Yizhi had confidently come to avenge his nephew, he suddenly realized that Yun Luofeng had not come to the academy. Moreover, he had been gone for more than half a month.